Chapter 239. No one had expected this to happen. Even Chu Xiao didn't know when this person had appeared. The figure that suddenly dug out the heart wore black clothes and was around the age of 20. He had a handsome appearance and a rather thin figure, but his eyes were a strange blood-red color while his face carried a wisp of an evil smile at all times. Especially when he was holding a heart that was covered in blood at this moment. He simply seemed even more like a madman than Chu Xiao who'd slaughtered his way through Water Cloud Temple. The crowd suddenly went silent. Then someone shouted, "It's him! Heart Hunter Tong Kai Tai." As soon as this statement came out, the crowd suddenly went into an uproar. In terms of fame, this person was much more famous than Chu Xiao. Chu Xiao's leap from a penniless rogue cultivator to the 18th place on the Longhu list was already amazing enough, but Tong Kai Tai's achievement was even more amazing than Chu Xiao's. He had directly risen from a demonic path rogue cultivator to the 13th place on the Longhu list. What made Tong Kai Tai famous in the martial world was that he had killed an elite disciple of Longhu Mountain's celestial master mansion. Moreover, he had even killed that disciple and dug out his heart. In the end, Longhu Mountain had been enraged and had sent many experts to hunt him down. However, Tong Kai Tai had still managed to escape. Tong Kai Tai hadn't shown himself in the past 2 years. Everyone thought that he was still hiding in the West Chu Barren Mountains, not daring to come out. Who would have thought that he would swagger here and even kill a Sword King City cultivator in front of everyone? The other Sword King City cultivators immediately retreated after Tong Kai Tai killed a person. Their hands that were holding their swords trembled even more violently. When they heard Chu Xiao say that he would let them off this time, they felt as if they had been given a new lease of life and instantly felt relieved. Who would have thought that before they could even relax, another evil wolf would appear? In terms of fierce reputation, Tong Kai Tai was even more famous than Chu Xiao in the martial world. "Do you have enmity with the people of Sword King City?" Chu Xiao suddenly asked as he looked at Tong Kai Tai. Tong Kai Tai grinned and said, "No, I only have a grudge against the Taoist Master Mansion's ox nose. However, I have always wanted to taste the taste of a swordsman's heart. It just so happens that you don't want to kill them, so I will help you kill them." After saying that, Tong Kai Tai's hand suddenly blossomed with a blood-red light. The heart began to shrink rapidly in the blood-red light. In the end, it directly turned into powder and scattered on the ground. Tong Kai Tai's face was a little flushed. He even closed his eyes as if he was enjoying it. "SK, the taste of a swordsman's heart is pretty good. Too bad that guy in the three-flower realm was crippled by you. It's better to be fresh if you want to win someone's heart." Everyone present felt a chill down their spines when they saw this. In the past, there was a widespread rumor in Jianghu that Tong Kai Tai liked to eat people's hearts. Now it seemed that this rumor was false, but it was also half true. Although Tong Kai Tai did not eat human flesh, he had obviously cultivated some kind of secret technique that allowed him to devour the qi and blood in the heart to increase his strength. Demonic techniques had always been rejected by people in Jianghu. What they hated was Tong Kai Tai's secret technique, which was considered extremely evil even among demonic techniques. Looking at Tong Kai Tai, Chu Xiao suddenly said coldly, "I was the one who let these people go. What if I don't let you kill them?" Of course, Chu Xiao was not kind enough to help the people of Sword King City. However, he did not want to take the blame for Tong Kai Tai. He had just crippled Fei Mo, and now Tong Kai Tai had killed everyone from Sword King City. According to the people of Sword King City, they would definitely blame him for this. It did not matter if Sword King City held a grudge against him. After all, Chu Xiao had already offended the people of Sword King City. However, Chu Xiao did not want to take the blame for some random guy. He could kill these people, but he couldn't kill the others. The smile on Tong Kai Tai's face gradually disappeared. He narrowed his eyes and said, "You won't let me kill them? You already crippled their elite disciples. Do you think Sword King City will not hold a grudge against you if you don't kill these people?" Chu Xiao took a step forward and said faintly, "Whether Sword King City hates me or not is my business. I can kill these people, but you can't. Tong Kai Tai, you and I mind our own business. If you want to kill people, do it at another time. I don't care, but don't cause trouble in front of me." Tong Kai Tai was more of a madman than Chu Xiao. Chu Xiao was very normal most of the time, but Tong Kai Tai was intermittently crazy. If Tong Kai Tai had acted in secret, then not to mention Sword King City's people, Chu Xiu would not have cared who he killed. But now, Tong Kai Tai wanted to kill people after Chu Xiu had acted. This was obviously to provoke Chu Xiu. It was commonly known as causing trouble after eating too much. If such a person was not crazy, then what was? Hearing Chu Xiu's words, Tong Kai Tai grinned again. What if I insist on killing? You want to stop me? I've only been in the Ji province for a few days. I heard that you're very famous. Everyone says that you're the most likely to win the God Armament Convention. I'm not interested in the God Armament Convention, but I've recently joined the Omniscient sect. Those old fogies want me to help them make some noise. It just so happens that you're famous. If I dig out your heart, do you think I'll be more famous than you? Hearing this, everyone immediately understood what was going on. This guy was really looking for trouble. Or it could be said that Chu Xiu had recently become a big tree that attracted the wind. If Chu Xiu was still as unknown as before, then Fei Mo and the other Sword King City's disciples wouldn't have heard of Chu Xiu's name. Naturally, they wouldn't have thought of looking for trouble with Chu Xiu. Now, Tong Kai Tai was the same. Looking at his appearance, it was obvious that he was looking for trouble for the sake of his reputation. However, everyone was puzzled. When did Tong Kai Tai join the Omniscient sect? The Omniscient sect was one of the 7 sects and 8 schools. It belonged to the Devil Path and was located in the northern Yan's northern plains. But Tong Kai Tai was from West Chu. No one had heard of him appearing in the northern Yan. How did he collude with the Omniscient sect? Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes as he looked at Tong Kai Tai. It turned out that the other party's mission was the same as his. He also wanted to use this opportunity to show off his sect's might. However, the Omniscient sect was even more low-key than the Guanzhong torture room. As a former Devil Path sect, the Omniscient sect was once a subordinate sect of the Kunlun Devil cult. So after the Kunlun Devil cult suffered heavy losses, the Omniscient sect became incomparably low-key. It had been a long time since they caused any trouble in the world. Unfortunately, the Omniscient sect seemed to have picked the wrong person. This Tong Kai Tai's brain was obviously abnormal. Did the Omniscient sect send him to show off their might or to offend others? Chu Xiu stepped forward and lightly said, "You want to dig out my heart? If you have the strength you can come and try." "That's what you said." Tong Kai Tai laughed strangely. There was no killing intent in his eyes, but his figure instantly turned into a black shadow and rushed toward Chu Xiu. His speed was so fast that it was even close to Chu Xiu's internal binding seal. Tong Kai Tai stretched out his 5 fingers, and black gang energy wrapped around his arm like a blade. There was no gang energy released, but when the claw fell, a powerful sonic boom could be heard. Chu Xiu's figure did not move, and the red sleeve blade in his hand suddenly slashed down. In an instant, the sky was filled with blade shadows that fell one after another with the power of the blood-refined divine shield. As the blade light flew, there was a magnificent killing intent. However, the blade aura that was filled with bloody chi was crushed by Tong Kai Tai one by one. And at this moment, the black gang energy in Tong Kai Tai's hand suddenly erupted with a touch of blood. With an evil aura, it directly grabbed toward Chu Xiu's chest, shattering all the protective gang energy. "It's the Azura hand," some of the onlookers whispered. Tong Kai Tai's martial arts technique was very famous, not because it was powerful, but because Tong Kai Tai had used his Azura hand to crush the hearts of several experts of the Celestial Master Mansion. And then they suddenly realized that Chu Xiu was already in the 3-flower realm. The strength that Tong Kai Tai showed was not inferior to Chu Xiu at all. He had also reached the 3-flower realm. At this time in the field, in the face of Tong Kai Tai's strange and powerful Azura hand, Chu Xiu held the great Vajra wheel seal in his hand. In an instant, a dazzling Buddha light bloomed. A burst of gang energy exploded. Tong Kai Tai's Azura hand was also no match for the powerful power of Chu Xiu's great Vajra wheel seal. Moreover, Buddhist techniques had a certain restraining effect on his martial arts. A glimmer of light appeared in Tong Kai Tai's eyes, but before he could react, Chu Xiu directly pressed forward, turning the tables on him. His hand formed the lion seal, and as the finger seal knocked, a thunderous explosion with a majestic Buddhist sound was heard. It suddenly caused Tong Kai Tai's body to tremble, and the smile on his face disappeared. He was shocked by this thunderous sound of Buddhist sound. The fist seal fell again, and the fierce and overbearing power of the great Vajra wheel seal was displayed to the extreme by Chu Xiu. It was simply pressing down on Tong Kai Tai. Although Tong Kai-tai had only used one move, Chu Xiu could tell that Tong Kai-tai was proficient in the standard demonic path. It was sinister and strange. Although it was powerful, it would still be restrained by Buddhist techniques. At this time, the fist seal in Chu Xiu's hand suddenly changed. The great Vajra wheel seal abruptly changed into the great purple sun hand in mid-air. The switch between good and evil demonstrated Chu Xiu's proficient control of his own martial arts, inner force, and spiritual qi. Tong Kai-tai was caught off guard, and Chu Xiu's palm directly hit his right arm. In an instant, the purple sun demonic flame entered his body, causing him to groan. With one step, Tong Kai-tai's figure rapidly retreated. He fiercely swung his hand, and a wave of black hot gang qi was flung out. When it hit the ground, it actually burned a hole. Looking at Chu Xiu, Tong Kai-tai smiled coldly and said, "A man with a great reputation does not live up to his name. I can't dig your heart away for now, but don't worry, one day it will be mine. I can feel that there is something in your heart that is very attractive to me. It is very powerful, and also very delicious." As soon as he finished speaking, Tong Kai-tai directly turned around and left. His figure flashed and disappeared without a trace. However, Chu Xiu looked at Tong Kai-tai's back, and a cold killing intent appeared in his eyes. Chapter 240. Tong Kai-tai, the human demon hunter, loved to dig people's hearts after killing them. In the past, other people in the Jianghu thought that Tong Kai-tai had a perverted fetish for human flesh. Now, everyone knew that it was just a secret technique he cultivated. What Tong Kai-tai said just now was just Tong Kai-tai going crazy in the ears of others, but in Chu Xiu's ears, it was like thunder. Not only was Tong Kai-tai interested in the human heart, but he also had a strange feeling about it. He said that Chu Xiu's heart was very attractive to him, and he was talking about the glazed golden silk goo. Chu Xiu was sure that Tong Kai-tai did not know about the existence of the glazed golden silk goo, but he was the first person to notice the abnormality in Chu Xiu's heart. The glazed golden silk goo was a big secret of Chu Xiu. Once it was discovered by others, as the owner of the glazed golden silk goo, would the moon-worshipping church let him go? As the owner of the glazed golden silk goo, would the Great Light Temple let him go? As for the second prince of Eastern Qi, he had always wanted the glazed golden silk goo. Would he let Chu Xiu go? This was a secret that Chu Xiu absolutely could not let outsiders know. Even if Tong Kai-tai only felt that something was wrong, Chu Xiu had to kill this doubt completely. As for how to kill it, there was no need to say more. Mo Tianlin did not notice Chu Xiu's abnormality. He just shook his head and sighed. What's going on with this God Weapon Conference? Why are there so many monsters and monsters? Even Tong Kai-tai, that madman, swaggered out. Previously, Mo Tianlin thought that this God Weapon Conference would be very simple. The top 10 on the Longhu list would not come, and he had a certain chance of winning the God Weapon. But now, Xie Xiaolu came to join in the fun, Luo Feiheng came to stir up trouble, and Chu Xiu came as a dark horse. Now, even Tong Kai-tai, a demonic martial artist who had stepped into the three-flower realm at one's prominence, had come. His cultivation was somewhat lacking. Chu Xiu said faintly, "It's not bad to have some liveliness. I like it." Mo Tianlin slapped his head and said, "I forgot, your goal for participating in the God Weapon Conference is the same as that Tong Kai-tai. You are here to make a name for your sect. However, even if you withdraw from the God Weapon Conference, you have already earned enough reputation. I just don't know if Hall Master Guan of the Guanzhong torture room will reward or punish you after this. After all, you have offended more than one person this time." Chu Xiu said indifferently, "This isn't something I should worry about. In any case, it was Hall Master Guan who specifically asked me to come here. He knows my personality, so I reckon he should be mentally prepared." Mo Tianlin was slightly speechless. If Guan Xiu knew what Chu Xiu was thinking, she would probably be half dead with anger. After all, no sect leader would like such a troublemaking disciple. At this time, on top of a tall building not far from the Purple Cloud restaurant, Mr. Liu, who had worked with Jiang Wenyuan before, stood on the roof. His eyes flickered with an unknown light. Next to him was a martial artist covered in a black cloak. He asked in a low voice, "Uncle, Tong Kai-tai actually came to the God Weapon Conference as a member of the evil sect. Could it be that the people of the evil sect also heard something? Could it be that there is a traitor among us who tipped off the evil sect? Do we need to change the plan?" When Mr. Lu heard this, he coldly snorted and said, "Even if someone tipped off the evil sect, they would not dare to ruin our plans. The evil sect is just a group of vile people who see the wind and set the helm. In the past, when our demonic sect was in danger, the evil sect was the first to run away. They relied on the large righteous sects to admit defeat. That is how they managed to survive until now. These past few years, the evil sect has not made any moves. This time, the disciple they sent is actually a rising star of the demonic path. The evil sect should not know of our plan, and it is also impossible for them to know of it. So this Tong Kai Tai is most likely here to make his presence known. Ignore him and continue with the plan." That martial artist nodded, and his figure strangely blended into the surrounding environment. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air. It was extremely strange. After the Violet Cloud restaurant was destroyed, no one was in the mood to drink anymore. The God Weapon Convention was going to start in a few days. During this period of time, Chu Xiao and the others were all resting in seclusion in the inn. They had rested and adjusted their spirit to the peak before they came to prepare for the God Weapon Convention. 5 days later, the Mirror Lake Villa finally announced the opening. Tens of thousands of martial artists in the Ji State Prefecture all rushed into the Mirror Lake Villa. Of course, most of them went to watch the show. Those who really had the courage to participate in the God Weapon Conference and fight in the arena were estimated to be less than 1 in 10. The Mirror Lake Villa had already opened. There were more than 10 disciples of the Mo family and the Hidden Sword Villa in front of the gate to maintain order. After all, there were too many people, and there were even some martial artists who did not show up before. They were all people of the Jianghu, and it was normal for there to be some grudges between them. Therefore, some people even wanted to fight in front of the Mirror Lake Villa, but they were stopped by the people of the Mirror Lake Villa and the Hidden Sword Villa. At this time, at the gate, a middle-aged martial artist of the Mo family looked at the people rushing into the Mo family. He said to a middle-aged martial artist with 2 swords on his back, "Brother Chung, the power of this God Weapon Conference is a little too big, isn't it? We didn't expect so many people to come." The martial artist with 2 swords on his back was from the Hidden Sword Villa. Hearing this, he did not care and said, "What are you afraid of? The more people come, the better. Otherwise, how can we guarantee that the God Weapon will be produced smoothly?" The martial artist of the Mo family shook his head. Anyway, this matter was led by the Hidden Sword Villa. The bigger the momentum, the greater the reputation of the Hidden Sword Villa. However, the Mo family had never had the experience of entertaining so many people. These warriors were the outstanding figures of the younger generation of the Jianghu. Each of them was arrogant and conceited. They were very rebellious. It was extremely difficult to make them behave. However, the conference had already begun, so he could not drive people out. He could only call out all the disciples of the Mirror Lake Villa to maintain order. At this time, Chu Xiao, Mo Tianlin, and Xie Xiao Lu did not squeeze into the Mirror Lake Villa with the other people. With their identity and status, the Mirror Lake Villa would naturally arrange a good seat for them. This was the reality of the Jianghu. Although everyone was a young martial artist, Chu Xiao and the others had their own forces behind them. Moreover, they were all elites of the Dragon and Tiger list, so their seats were naturally in the front. On the other hand, some of the less famous martial artists did not even have a place to sit, they could only stand at the back. When almost everyone had entered, Chu Xiao and Xie Xiao Lu were ready to enter the Mirror Lake Villa. However, Chu Xiao suddenly asked, "Brother Mo, is there any relationship between the Mo family of the Mirror Lake Villa and the Mo family of Shangyang?" The Mo family of Eastern Qi was one of the 9 great families, so their reputation was not small. On the other hand, the Mo family of the Mirror Lake Villa was only famous because of the previous master of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, Mo Yizi. However, both of them were in Eastern Qi, so it was easy to associate them together. Mo Tianlin touched his nose and said awkwardly, "There is a bit of a relationship. In terms of bloodline, Master Mo Yizi is actually a branch of the Mo family, and a very remote branch at that. You should know the rules of the big families. It is very realistic. If the branch is strong, the resources they can obtain are second only to the direct descendants. However, if they are not strong enough, then Brother Chu should know the result. Therefore, Master Mo Yizi's branch left the Mo family a few hundred years ago. In fact, they have no relationship with the Mo family of Shangyang now." Chu Xiao nodded. If that was the case, the Mo family of Shangyang was not wrong. After all, the Mo family of Xiangyang was one of the 9 great families, so they certainly followed the law of survival of the fittest. Only the branch with strength could be the disciples of the Mo family. Without strength, naturally, they could not obtain anything. However, who would have thought that a branch with weak strength in the past would give birth to Mo Yizi, a master of divine weapon pavilion after a few hundred years? Although the strength of a master of divine weapon pavilion was definitely not as strong as a martial arts grandmaster, his status was higher than that of a martial arts grandmaster, especially when Mo Yizi eventually became the master of the divine weapon pavilion. Seeing Mo Tianlin's awkward expression, the Mo family had most likely tried to recruit Mo Yizi and wanted him to return to the family, but in the end, Mo Yizi refused. After entering the Mirror Lake Villa, Chu Xiao and the others did not have time to admire the surrounding scenery. There were simply too many people around. At this time, a disciple of the Mo family of the Mirror Lake Villa came over and bowed to Chu Xiao and the others. He said, "Everyone's seats are in front. Please follow me." Chu Xiao and the others followed the disciple to the front. At this time, the Mo family of the Mirror Lake Villa had already built 5 arenas. The northern seats were for the people of the Mirror Lake Villa and the Hidden Sword Villa, while the other 3 were for the martial artists who came to participate in the Divine Weapon Conference. Chu Xiao and the others sat in the front row. However, when they came to the front row, Chu Xiao found that Luo Feiheng was already sitting there with his legs crossed, leisurely drinking tea. There was even a small table beside his seat, filled with dried fruits and snacks. It really looked like he was here to watch a show. Mo Tianlin was surprised and said, "When did you go in? How come we didn't see you?" Luo Feiheng said lazily, "I came last night." "Was the Mirror Lake Villa open last night?" Mo Tianlin asked curiously. Luo Feiheng threw a few fruits to Chu Xiao and the others and said, "Who said that I can't come in if it's not open? Grandmaster Mo Yi admires me a lot. Can't I come a day earlier to chat with him?" Hearing this, everyone was speechless. They just remembered that the red kite in Luo Feiheng's hands was personally made by Mo Yizi. She really had some preferential treatment in the Mirror Lake Villa. Chapter 241. Although Mo Yizi was a weapon-refining great-grandmaster and was once the pavilion master of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, his temper was also famous for being eccentric. However, if anyone could obtain a weapon that he had personally forged, then Mo Yizi's attitude towards this person would also change. According to Mo Yizi, being able to see a precious weapon forged by him transform into a divine weapon was even more fulfilling than having him forge a divine weapon himself. After Chu Xiao and the others took their seats, there were also many people outside who were led to the front row by the disciples of the Mirror Lake Villa. Those who were arranged to the front row were almost all warriors from major sections. They were famous figures on the Longhu leaderboard, such as Bai Wuji. However, after witnessing the strength of Chu Xiao's 3-flower realm, Bai Wuji completely gave up on competing with Chu Xiao. He had no confidence in facing Chu Xiao when they were in the same realm. Now that there was an entire realm difference between him and Chu Xiao, how could he fight against Chu Xiao? Therefore, after seeing Chu Xiao, his expression also turned cold, but he did not say anything. Opposite of Chu Xiao, Tong Kai Tai was also brought in. After seeing Chu Xiao, he showed a strange smile to Chu Xiao, but he did not cause any trouble. Although he was a little crazy, he was not a real idiot. The evil Pole sect did not have any enmity with the Hidden Sword Villa. Coupled with his ranking on the Longhu leaderboard, even if he was from the demonic path, he was still treated the same as the other elites on the Longhu leaderboard. However, most of the warriors present were from the righteous path. There were many who did not like the demonic path warriors. If he caused trouble here, it would be troublesome if he incurred the wrath of the crowd. After a while, suddenly there was a commotion outside. Everyone was exclaiming and muttering about something, and the crowd could not help but part. After seeing who it was, Mo Tianlin's expression immediately darkened. He said coldly, "Why is he here?" The person who parted the crowd was a young man in his 20s. He seemed to be slightly older than Mo Tianlin, and he wore a bright yellow brocade robe and a white jade crown. His face was handsome and he gave off an extremely powerful aura. It was obvious that he was not an ordinary person at first glance. Most importantly, Chu Xiao could sense a very familiar aura from him. It was the same aura that belonged to a 3-flower realm martial artist. "Who is this person?" Chu Xiao asked in a low voice. Mo Tianlin clenched his teeth and said nothing. Xie Xiaolu explained from the side, the number one of the younger generation of the Xiahou clan of Nansong, ranked 10th on the Longhu leaderboard, Divine Prince Xiahou Wujiang. He's a very annoying guy, but he's also a genius. He's the only one who has successfully cultivated the divine control technique of the Xiahou clan of Nansong before reaching the Three-Flower Realm. Some time ago, I heard that he went into seclusion to break through to the Three-Flower Realm. How did he come out so soon? The people of the Xiahou clan are not good at using weapons. What use is a divine weapon to him? Chu Xiu said in a low voice. He's already in the Three-Flower Realm. Does Brother Mo have a grudge against him? Xie Xiaolu glanced at Mo Tianlin. There was no need to hide this kind of thing, so he simply said, Mo Tianlin was once defeated by this guy and was humiliated by him. The Xiahou clan also suppressed the Mo clan, so there's a lot of hatred between them. Chu Xiu nodded in understanding. No wonder Mo Tianlin had such a look on his face. The land of Eastern Qi had a long history. Half of the 9 major clans were in Eastern Qi. After so many years of friction, it was normal for there to be hatred. Originally, everyone thought that no one in the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard would come to the God Weapon Conference. They didn't expect Xiahou Wujiang to appear just as it was about to start. Moreover, there were many people who found out that he had stepped into the Three-Flower Realm. At the thought of this, everyone subconsciously looked at Chu Xiu, thinking that the dark horse Chu Xiu was a bit unlucky. Originally, Chu Xiu had stepped into the Three-Flower Realm after experiencing the battle of 1 against 100. Everyone thought that he would have the highest chance of winning in this God Weapon Conference. As a result, as soon as Chu Xiu showed his strength, he ran into Tong Kai Tai, who was also in the Three-Flower Realm. And it wasn't over yet. The conference was about to start, and Xiahou Wujiang unexpectedly appeared again. It should be known that this person was more famous than Chu Xiu. The Nansong Xiahou family's imperial spirit technique was also famous in the martial world. Xiahou Wujiang had defeated more than one Three-Flower Realm warrior when he was in the physical invulnerability realm. His record was definitely more glorious than Chu Xiu's, but he didn't kill as many people as Chu Xiu. Originally, Xiahou Wujiang was taken to the other side, but after seeing Chu Xiu's group, he went straight to Chu Xiu's side. Seeing Xiahou Wujiang's action, Mo Tianlin's face suddenly showed a touch of anger. He was a very good-tempered person, and the elders of the Mo family had also taught him to control his anger and control his emotions at all times. But now that he had encountered Xiahou Wujiang, he could no longer suppress his anger. Generally speaking, the heirs of large sects at the level of Mo Tianlin would give each other some face even though there would be friction and conflict between them. However, when Xiahou Wujiang rose, it happened to be when the Xiahou family suppressed the Mo family the most. Therefore, after Mo Tianlin lost to Xiahou Wujiang in the past, he was humiliated in every way possible and lost all face. This matter even spread in the land of Eastern Qi for more than half a year, making Mo Tianlin unable to take a step out of the Mo family for half a year. This matter would definitely be remembered by Mo Tianlin for the rest of his life. At this time, seeing Xiahou Wujiang coming, Mo Tianlin suddenly stood up, looked at Xiahou Wujiang with red eyes, and said coldly, Xiahou Wujiang, this is the God Weapon Conference, not a place where you can cause trouble. Don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you've stepped into the Three-Flower Realm. I haven't forgotten that battle back then. When I step into the Three-Flower Realm in the future, we will definitely fight again. Facing the angry Mo Tianlin, at this time, it was as if Xiahou Wujiang did not see him at all. He directly walked past him and said to Luo Fei Hung with a gentle smile on his face, Little sister of the Luo family, why are you here? Do you also want this God weapon? Anyway, I'm not very good at using weapons. After I get this God weapon, I'll give it to you, little sister. A treasured sword should be given to a hero, and this God weapon should naturally be given to a beauty. At this time, Mo Tianlin's face had already become red, so much so that it seemed as if it was about to drip blood. Xiahou Wujiang's actions were simply extremely insulting. He was still aggressively challenging Xiahou Wujiang, but in the end, Xiahou Wujiang did not come for him at all. In fact, he did not even pay attention to him, and in front of so many people, this kind of thing was indeed insulting. After seeing this scene, Chu Xiu, who was at the side, had a somewhat strange expression. Even an idiot could see that Xiahou Wujiang was interested in Luo Fei Hung. In the original plot, the Luo family encountered a great change, and they were prepared to unite by marriage with the Xiahou family. Chu Xiu did not know who Luo Fei Hung was going to marry, But with Luo Feiheng's strength and identity, the one who had the strength to marry her was definitely Xiahou Wujiang. However, Chu Xiu did not expect that Xiahou Wujiang would be interested in Luo Feiheng so early on. In fact, Xiahou Wujiang was not interested in Luo Feiheng now, but a long time ago. When he first saw Luo Feiheng, he was already interested in Luo Feiheng. Xiahou Wujiang was an extremely arrogant and conceited person. How could he be interested in ordinary women? Only a good-for-nothing like Mo Tianlin, who only knew how to mourn the autumn wind and moon, would like a woman with a delicate and gentle figure. A man like him should naturally subdue Luo Feiheng, who had a similarly tough and unruly temperament. In the past, when he fought with Mo Tianlin and defeated him, he humiliated him. It was not only because the Xiahou family was suppressing the Mo family at that time, but also because the Mo family had the intention of matchmaking Mo Tianlin and Luo Feiheng. Therefore, Xiahou Wujiang went overboard. Luo Feiheng looked at Xiahou Wujiang and frowned with some displeasure. Who is your sister? If you want to find a sister, go to the Xiaoxiang restaurant of Phoenix Cry. Do you need me to introduce you to a few with big breasts and thin waists? Xiahou Wujiang smiled and said, Little sister, you must be joking. How can those common rouge and powder compare to you? Our families have been friends for generations. Shouldn't I call you little sister? Some time ago, I met Uncle Luo, and he told me to take good care of you if I see you. Luo Feiheng waved his hand impatiently and said, Who needs your care? Get lost, get lost. If other women dared to speak to him like this, Xiahou Wujiang would have long been angry. However, when Luo Feiheng said this, Xiahou Wujiang just smiled and took Luo Feiheng's impatience as coquettishness. Mo Tianlin shouted from the side, Xiahou Wujiang, this is not a place for you to stay. Feiheng told you to get lost. Did you hear him? Hearing Mo Tianlin's angry shout, Xiahou Wujiang turned his gaze to Mo Tianlin. The smile on his face gradually disappeared, and an imposing aura emerged from his body. It was definitely stronger than Mo Tianlin's. Mo Tianlin, a loser like you dares to balk at me here. I didn't lower myself to your level, but you became even worse, didn't you? Also, are you qualified to call me Feiheng? Next time, stay away from little sister Luo, or else don't blame me for not giving face to your Mo family. Xiahou Wujiang's eyes revealed a touch of coldness as he said, There are many in the younger generation of your Mo family who want to replace your position. Believe it or not, even if I cripple you right now, your Mo family will not do anything to me. On the contrary, there will be people thanking me. Xiahou Wujiang's words provoked Mo Tianlin, and the anger in his heart erupted. However, what he said was the truth. In fact, the Mo family's main focus at the beginning was not Mo Tianlin, but other people. However, because Mo Tianlin had been frustrated in love, he had advanced by leaps and bounds, far surpassing other martial artists of the same generation. Because of this, the Mo family had focused on nurturing him. There were many people in the Mo family who were eyeing his position. Now that Xiahou Wujiang had pointed this out in front of him, as well as Xiahou Wujiang's disdain and humiliation, the usually calm and peaceful Mo Tianlin could no longer endure it. An ink-colored slender sword was already grasped in his hand. Chapter 242. Mo Tianlin's personality was actually very good. He treated people peacefully and generously, and he also had the elegance and politeness of someone born in an aristocratic family. Even when facing ordinary servants, he had never reprimanded them or lost his temper. But even a man made of clay had a temper. Being humiliated and threatened by his former enemy, if Mo Tianlin still did not lose his temper, then either he was extremely scheming and could endure the humiliation, or he was really too useless. At this time, seeing Mo Tianlin draw his sword, the corner of Xiahou Wujiang's mouth revealed a disdainful smile. He had been waiting for this moment. Although Xiahou Wujiang was arrogant and conceited, he was not stupid. This was the God Weapon Convention jointly organized by the Mirror Lake Villa and the Hidden Sword Villa. If he made the first move, it was equivalent to offending the Hidden Sword Villa and Master Mo Yezi. Therefore, at this time, he deliberately provoked Mo Tianlin, letting him draw his sword first, so that he would have a reason to make a move. Just as the long sword in Mo Tianlin's hand had just been unsheathed and was stained with a little gang qi, Xiahou Wujiang had already moved. His body did not move, but a bright divine light flashed in his eyes. An invisible halo instantly enveloped Mo Tianlin, unexpectedly causing the gang qi that Mo Tianlin had begun to condense to dissipate forcibly, which made Mo Tianlin suddenly let out a muffled groan. The Xiahou clan's imperial spirit technique was famous in Jianghu, and in fact, the imperial spirit technique was an extremely profound primordial spirit secret technique. In Jianghu, there were all kinds of mystical and secret techniques, but the most mystical, or perhaps the most bizarre, was the primordial spirit secret technique that cultivated mental strength. For example, Chu Xiu's great technique of extinguishing the heavens and destroying the earth and soul shifting, the Ghost King Sex Ghost secret technique, and the Xiahou clan's imperial spirit technique all belonged to the category of primordial spirit secret techniques, but they focused on different directions. Chu Xiu's great art of extinguishing the sky and extinguishing the earth and soul shifting focused on the cultivation of one's spiritual force. Although one could barely use it in the Xiantian realm, the effect was not strong in the early stage. It could only be used on weaker martial artists, and it could only affect martial artists at the same level. Only after reaching the advanced stage would it have the power of soul-shifting magic. Of course, now that Chu Xiu had reached the three-flower realm, his essence, qi, and spirit had become one. His mental strength had also greatly increased, and his cultivation of the soul-shifting technique had also greatly increased. On the other hand, the Ghost King Sex Ghost secret technique was more inclined to materialize one's own primordial spirit. It was very extreme, and one needed to be in the three-flower realm to get started. As for the Xiahou clan's spirit control art, it was an extremely complete set of primordial spirit cultivation techniques. It had a foundation and was both offensive and defensive. The Xiahou clan's spirit control art began to train one's mental strength in the early stage of martial artists. After successfully cultivating it, the spirit control art could even control the other party's mind, just like controlling a puppet. In this regard, the spirit control art was even more domineering than the soul-shifting technique. Furthermore, the imperial spirit art also had a whole set of martial techniques related to the primordial spirit that could be used. Combined with the imperial spirit art itself, its might was much stronger than the heaven-extinguishing earth soul-shifting technique, which was only a part of the Heaven and Earth Yin Yang Great Sorrow poem. In the past, when Mo Tianlin fought with Xiahou Wujiang, both of them were still in the physical invulnerability realm, but he was defeated by Xiahou Wujiang's spirit control art. Logically speaking, the Xiahou clan's spirit control art could only display its true combat power when one reached the three-flower realm at one's prominence. However, Xiahou Wujiang was indeed a genius. He was born with incomparably strong mental strength. When he was in the physical invulnerability realm, his own mental strength was even stronger than some of the Xiahou clan's three-flower realm at one's prominence. Therefore, the spirit control art could naturally display its greatest power in his hands. Now that Xiahou Wujiang had stepped into the three-flower realm at one's prominence, with his mental strength coupled with the terrifying power of the spirit control art, he could even make Mo Tianlin commit suicide on the spot, let alone make his spiritual qi backfire. At this time, Mo Tianlin was sweating profusely. When faced with a primordial spirit secret technique like the spirit control art, there was basically no other way but to use their own will to resist it. Xiahou Wujiang's mouth had a hint of a malicious smile. He would not let Mo Tianlin really commit suicide. After all, the other party was also an outstanding disciple of the Mo clan's younger generation. Although the Xiahou clan was not afraid of the Mo clan, killing him would still be troublesome. However, it was still possible to humiliate Mo Tianlin in front of everyone. With a clang, the long sword in Mo Tianlin's hand fell to the ground. He actually reached out a hand and directly slapped himself in the face, wanting to slap himself. Xie Xiaolu's expression darkened on the side. Mo Tianlin was a good friend of his for several years. Xiahou Wujiang had attacked him in public, which meant that he did not take him seriously at all. Luo Feiheng also frowned. She did not have a good impression of Xiahou Wujiang, not to mention that he was still pursuing her disgustingly. Now that Xiahou Wujiang had gone so far and controlled Mo Tianlin to slap himself in the face in front of everyone, he was simply ready to destroy Mo Tianlin and damage his state of mind. However, before Luo Feiheng and Xie Xiaolu could make a move, Xiahou Wujiang let out a soft snort. It was a very strange syllable, and it did not even seem like a sound that could be made from the throat. However, it was this soft snort that caused Luo Feiheng and Xie Xiaolu to tremble. Their movements paused for a moment, but it was this slight pause that caused them to be one step too late. They could only watch as Mo Tianlin's slap was coming towards them. However, at this moment, a deafening Buddhist sound suddenly rang out. Chu Xiao did not move from his original position. He formed the external lion seal with his hand, and it was like a sudden shout that completely awakened Mo Tianlin, causing him to immediately stop his movements and retreat. Cold sweat continuously flowed down from his forehead. This external lion seal sounded like the roar of Vajra in Xiahou Wujiang's ears, shocking his mind. It actually made him let out a muffled snort, and the spirit-driving technique was directly interrupted. Mo Tianlin wiped the cold sweat from his head and looked at Chu Xiao with a hint of gratitude in his eyes. In the past, he had chosen to befriend Chu Xiao and help him at a critical moment, and it was truly the right decision. Today, Chu Xiao had also helped him once. If this slap of his fell, not only would the warriors of Eastern Qi see it, but also the warriors of West Chu and Northern Yan would also see it. He would lose a lot of face, and even his reputation would be ruined. Mo Tianlin himself did not expect Xiahou Wujiang, who had stepped into the three-flower realm at one's prominence, to be so terrifying. The spirit-driving technique was more overbearing than he had imagined. Although part of it was because he was unprepared, under Xiahou Wujiang's spirit-driving technique, he did not even have the slightest chance to resist. Xiahou Wujiang narrowed his eyes, looked at Chu Xiao and said coldly, "Chu Xiao of the Guanzhong torture room? I've heard of you. Recently, you've become very famous in my Eastern Qi. Do you really think that you can stand above all the heroes of the world just because you can fight against 100 people alone? The Guanzhong torture room sent you here to make a name for yourself. Just mind your own business. Are you qualified to meddle in other people's business and stand up for others?" During this time, Chu Xiao was indeed very famous in Eastern Qi. Even before Xiahou Wujiang came to the Ji State Prefecture, he had already heard of Chu Xiao's brilliant achievements. However, he did not take it seriously. Was it difficult to fight against 100 people alone? He, Xiahou Wujiang, did not have such an opportunity. If he had such an opportunity, he could also do it. Their Xiahou clan's spirit-driving technique was best at group battles, especially when it was one against many. After hearing of Chu Xiao's achievements, Xiahou Wujiang also simulated the scene at that time. If he was Chu Xiao, he could completely use the spirit-driving technique to control one or even several people to be a meat shield and let them kill each other. It was estimated that killing a dozen people would completely collapse the motley crew. It was even easier than killing Chu Xiao. He really did not take Chu Xiao seriously. Chu Xiao said lightly, "The Guanzhong torture room sent me here to make a name for myself, but I heard that you, young Master Xiahou, are very famous in Eastern Qi. Do you think that if I cripple you, it will be enough for me to make a name for myself? How dare you?" Xiahou Wujiang shouted, and a dazzling divine light bloomed from his eyes. It was extremely dazzling, and it seemed to have some kind of brilliance as it shrouded Chu Xiao. But at this moment, Chu Xiao's eyes glowed with a dark light as well. He executed the soul displacement technique, and in an instant, his eyes were like a bottomless abyss that pulled everything into it, causing it to sink and melt. The eyes were the channel to view the world, so in the early stages, mentality was emitted from the eyes as a medium. But if the mentality was cultivated to the extreme, it could even be transformed into a physical primordial spirit, and one could see the whole world with one's eyes closed. One could even open a heavenly eye between the eyebrows as a channel to the primordial spirit, just like the Taoist legend of Lord Qingyuan Daomiao, who had 3 eyes on his head. It was said that when the masters of the Xiahou clan used the spirit-driving technique with all their strength, a 3rd eye would condense in between the eyebrows that evolved completely from the power of the primordial spirit, and it looked very mystical. At present, neither Chu Xiao nor Xiahou Wujiang had reached this realm, but the mentality that erupted from their eyes was already shocking enough. Of these two people's mentality, one was like a golden radiance, extremely overbearing and powerful, while the other was like a gloomy deep abyss that devoured any kind of power. They were actually in a deadlock on the spot. In fact, in terms of the strength of the mentality, Xiahou Wujiang was definitely superior. After all, the Xiahou clan mainly cultivated spiritual power, while Chu Xiao had only cultivated the great art of extinguishing heaven and earth, exterminating soul shifting. But Chu Xiao still had the 9 words formula of fast and slow. He had already secretly formed the inner lion seal, and the power of the inner lion seal suppressed his body. Without any scruples, he erupted his mentality to fight against Xiahou Wujiang. At this moment, they were actually evenly matched. When the surrounding warriors saw this scene, they were all horrified. Whether it was the previous battle at the Water Cloud Temple or the battle of Chu Xiao in the Purple Cloud Restaurant, There were many onlookers, and they could be considered to have witnessed Chu Xiu's strength. All along, everyone had thought that was Chu Xiu's limit, but who would have thought that Chu Xiu still had a trump card? His mentality was actually so powerful that it could actually compete with Xiahou Wujiang. Chapter 243. The conflict between Chu Xiu and Xiahou Wujiang attracted the attention of a group of people. One of them was the youngest inspector in the history of the Guanzhong torture room, and also the dark horse of this god weapon conference. The other was ranked 10th on the Longhu leaderboard, the genius of this generation of the Xiahou clan, Xiahou Wujiang. The conflict between the two would be interesting to watch. At the same time, the commotion between the two had alerted the people of the Mo clan and the Hidden Sword Villa. The Mo clan of the Mirror Lake Villa was not the Mo clan of Shangyang, after all. Mo Yezi alone might not be able to suppress the two, so the martial artist of the Hidden Sword Villa who was in charge of maintaining order at the door moved, leaping into the air and crossing over the crowd. He pointed out a sword finger. It was colorless and transparent, but everyone could feel the shocking sword will. That incomparably sharp and astonishing sword intent actually directly severed the mental energy between Chu Xiu and Xiahou Wujiang, causing the two of them to let out a muffled grunt and take a step back. It's Cheng Dong Wang, the green cloud dual swords of the Hidden Sword Villa. An expert of the unity of heaven and man realm has intervened. The people present felt that it was a pity. If the two were to fight here, it would be very interesting. Cheng Dong Wang was an expert of the Hidden Sword Villa, and was mainly in charge of the Order of the God Weapon Conference. He had some reputation in the Jianghu. The green cloud dual swords on his back were 6 transformation precious weapons, but if they were used with his unique sword technique, they could be combined into one, becoming a fake divine weapon with shocking power. At this time, seeing Xiahou Wujiang and Chu Xiu fighting so fiercely before the God Weapon Conference had even begun, he felt a headache. These disciples from large sects were so difficult to manage. With the strength of the Hidden Sword Villa, it was actually quite difficult to organize a conference of this level. If it were the Great Light Temple or the Celestial Master Abode of Longhu Mountain holding a conference of this level, then even the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard would have to stay here obediently. Obviously, the Hidden Sword Villa could not compare to these two sections. The Guanzhong torture room was not weak, and the Xiahou family was on par with the Hidden Sword Villa. They did not want to offend either of them. Cheng Dong Wang coughed and said, "The God Weapon Convention is about to begin. Even if you want to make a move, there's no need to rush. If you want to fight, wait until the God Weapon Convention begins. You will have the chance to do so then." As one of the hosts, the Hidden Sword Villa had spoken up, and this Cheng Dong Wang, a great expert at the unity of heaven and man realm, had come. Even if Xiahou Wujiang was furious, he could only endure it. Looking at Chu Xiu, Xiahou Wujiang said coldly, "Very good. I underestimated you. I didn't think that even your mental energy was so powerful. Now, I'm a little interested in fighting you. My Xiahou clan's spirit control art isn't just this powerful." After speaking, Xiahou Wujiang turned around and left. He was taken to the other side. Seeing Xiahou Wujiang leave, Chu Xiu also retreated and didn't take the initiative to provoke him. Seeing that both parties had left, Cheng Dong Wang nodded his head in satisfaction and also left. Behind him, Mo Tianlin smiled bitterly and cupped his hands at Chu Xiu, saying, "Thank you for your help, Brother Chu. If it weren't for you this time, I would have lost a lot of face. I probably wouldn't be qualified to stay in the land of Eastern Qi anymore." Chu Xiu waved his hand casually and said, "It was nothing. Brother Mo, you also saved me last time, so you're welcome. Besides, I also wanted to test this guy's strength. Anyway, we will definitely have to fight later. However, I have to say that the Xiahou clan's spirit control art is really powerful. His strength is worthy of his 10th place on the Longhu leaderboard." Mo Tianlin looked a little gloomy as he said, "I also know this. Back when he was in the physical invulnerability realm, I still had hope of fighting him. But now, he has reached the 3-flower realm earlier than me, and his strength is so powerful that it makes people feel hopeless." Mo Tianlin was also a prideful person, but today, in front of his former enemy, Xiahou Wujiang, his pride had been crushed to the point where not even the slightest bit remained. In a head-on fight, it would be a piece of cake for Xiahou Wujiang to kill him. If it weren't for Chu Xiu's help today, he would have lost a lot of face. At this time, Luo Feiheng suddenly poked Mo Tianlin and said, "That's enough. You're a man. Why are you crying after losing once? If you can't beat him now, can't you beat him in the future? Are you going to learn from Lin Kaiyun and seek death after being defeated by Chu Xiao? Mo Tianlin's face turned red. Although Luo Feiheng didn't act like a woman, she was still a woman. He still felt a little embarrassed to be comforted by a woman like this. Chu Xiao asked curiously, "Weren't you drinking at the Xiaoxiang restaurant that day? How do you know about me and Sword King City?" Luo Feiheng rolled her eyes beautifully and said, "It's not like I drank myself to death in the Xiaoxiang restaurant. How could I not know? You crippled Sword King City's elite disciple of the previous generation, Sword of Great Light, Fei Mo, in front of everyone in the Violet Cloud restaurant. This matter has long spread throughout the Ji State Prefecture. On that day, the girls in the Xiaoxiang restaurant were still discussing this matter. I have to say that Fei Mo's name isn't very good. Fei Mo, cripple me, cripple me. Now it's good. You really crippled him." Speaking up to hear, Luo Feiheng laughed twice. Then she suddenly changed the topic and said to Chu Xiao, "Right, you're now very popular in the eyes of the girls in the Xiaoxiang restaurant. Those girls have seen many courteous and elegant disciples of aristocratic families. Now they want to change their taste. They all say that you, Chu Xiao, are very domineering and cold. If you go to the Xiaoxiang restaurant now, even if you don't pay, the girls will still throw themselves at you. That guy is the type that the girls are tired of playing with. Not only does he want money, he also wants purple gold." Luo Feiheng pointed at Mo Tianlin. This made Mo Tianlin speechless, but his mood also eased. Luo Feiheng was right. He wasn't Lin Kaiyun. His mental state wasn't so weak. Victory and defeat were common. In this world, among the young heroes, except for the little celestial master Zhang Qingzhen, who hadn't lost. Today, he lost to Xiahou Wujiang, but it didn't mean that he would lose to Xiahou Wujiang for the rest of his life. As long as he didn't fall, he still had the qualifications to continue fighting. Seeing that Mo Tianlin was fine, they continued to chat. At this time, almost everyone had arrived. However, at this time, opposite of Chu Xiao and the others, there was a commotion on by Wuji's side. Chu Xiao and the others looked over there. There were people preparing to squeeze to the front. The number of seats in the front of the God Weapon Conference was fixed. As long as you had strength and status, you would naturally be arranged to the front. Therefore, from the beginning, the Mirror Lake Manor's members had already reserved a few reserved seats in the front. Even if someone suddenly came, they would be prepared, just like Xiahou Wujiang. Even if Xiahou Wujiang didn't show up earlier, he would still be arranged to the front if he came. But because the God Weapon Conference was about to begin, some of the Mirror Lake Manor's disciples thought that no one would come again. Therefore, they gave some of the reserved seats in the front to others. As for the person who came at the back, it seemed like his status wasn't weak either. Everyone looked towards Bai Wuji's direction and saw a young man dressed in a white robe, holding a blue scabbard in his hand. His expression was cold and stern, and the aura he exuded was incomparably cold, causing people to feel a sense of awe at first glance. The moment he saw that person, Chu Xiao's eyes revealed a smear of surprise. Although it was his first time seeing this person, but Chu Xiao already recognized this person's identity. He should be the Azure Water Sword sect's eldest disciple, Falling Rain Sword, Shen Bai. Chu Xiao had never seen Shen Bai before, but this Shen Bai's appearance was exactly the same as the Shen Mo who died in his hands. However, his temperament was much colder than Shen Mo's. Although the appearance was the same, it was easy to distinguish. Previously in Wei County, as the eldest disciple of Azure Water Sword sect, Shen Bai's reputation was naturally very great. It was even to the point that everyone knew of him. But after Chu Xiao set foot in the martial world, he discovered that the Azure Water Sword sect's strength was actually just so. It wasn't considered too strong among the 7 sects and 8 factions. Shen Bai himself was even more unknown in the martial world, and he hadn't even started to roam the martial world. Originally, Chu Xiao thought that it was unlikely that he would have any interaction with Shen Bai in this lifetime. He didn't expect to see Shen Bai here today. At this moment, a martial artist from the Mirror Lake Manor said with some difficulty, "Young Master Shen, the seats at the front are already full, but there are still seats at the back. Can you make an exception and temporarily stay at the back?" Shen Bai's face didn't have the slightest expression. He just used an extremely cold tone and said, Your God Weapon Conference is jointly organized by the Hidden Sword Villa to organize the God Weapon Conference. But in the end, you didn't even prepare enough seats? The disciple from the Mirror Lake Manor quickly said. Of course we prepared enough, but young Master Shen came too late, so those seats have already been arranged for others. Because Shen Bai wasn't famous in the martial world, the tone of the disciple from the Mirror Lake Manor had some complaints. If you want to participate in the God Weapon Conference, why didn't you come earlier? Everyone else is waiting in the G State Prefecture. But you are special. Why must you come at the right time? Do you think you are a top 10 expert on the Longhu list like Xiaofan Wujiang, and have the qualifications to come at the right time? Shen Bai said coldly. If the arrangements have been given to others, then let them give it up. Those who can sit in the front row are all disciples from the top sects in the martial world. Now you want me to go to the back row. What is the meaning of this? Could it be that your Mirror Lake Manor thinks that my Azure Water Sword sect is no longer qualified to be ranked as one of the top sects in the martial world, and is only qualified to be associated with those second-rate sects? Shen Bai's tone was incomparably cold, and with every sentence, that chilling intent deepened. A wave of imposing prowess was faintly felt, causing the expression of the disciple from the Mirror Lake Manor to suddenly change, and cold sweat couldn't help but flow down. Chapter 244. As one of the 7 sects and 8 schools, even if the Azure Water Sword sect was in decline, it wasn't something that the Mirror Lake Manor could compare to. The Mirror Lake Manor's martial prowess was actually very weak, but with Mo Yezi, the previous Divine Weapon Pavilion Master and a smithing Grandmaster, they had a great reputation in the Eastern Qi. Therefore, under Shen Bai's powerful presence, the Mirror Lake Manor disciple was on the verge of tears. He didn't know what to do. The front row seats were already occupied. If he were to chase them away now, he would be offending them. If he didn't chase them away, he would definitely offend Shen Bai, and it would be bad for both sides. Seeing the commotion over here, the others present also looked over to Shen Bai's side. They were secretly muttering in their hearts. A declining sect like the Azure Water Sword sect actually sent someone over. They don't have a great reputation, but their temper is very big. In recent years, the Azure Water Sword sect's disciples had an extremely low presence in the pugilistic world. Even the entire Azure Water Sword sect could only find a few that were active in the pugilistic world. When the Azure Water Sword sect was at its peak, it should be when the Wei Kingdom still existed. During that time, the Azure Water Sword sect had a close relationship with the Wei Kingdom's imperial family, which was why they received the support of the entire Wei Kingdom's imperial family. Later on, the Wei Kingdom was destroyed by the Northern Yan and became the Northern Yan's Wei County. The Azure Water Sword sect was also suppressed by the Northern Yan Imperial Court and Northern Yan martial artists, and gradually declined. If Shen Bai didn't appear here this time, the martial artists here would have even forgotten that there was an Azure Water Sword sect among the 7 sects and 8 schools. At this moment, Feng Huai, who was sitting next to Shen Bai, didn't look too good. Because his current seat was actually prepared for a disciple from a top sect like Shen Bai. Feng Huai's Feng clan naturally couldn't compare with a large sect like the Azure Water Sword sect, so he was originally arranged to sit at the back. But because no one else was coming, Bai Wuji asked him to sit in the front. So, he was the one who asked for this seat. The Mirror Lake Manor saw that the God Weapon Conference was about to begin, and it would be a waste to leave the seats empty, so they agreed. But now, Shen Bai wanted someone to give up their position the moment he arrived. Wasn't this referring to him? Hence, Feng Huai immediately sneered and said, "The Azure Water Sword sect isn't strong enough, but they sure have a bad temper. You came late and yet you are complaining that the Mirror Lake Manor didn't prepare a seat for you. If you didn't come, the Divine Weapon Conference wouldn't even need to be held. Why don't we just wait here for you?" The Feng clan's strength might not be comparable to the Azure Water Sword sect, but they were still a Northern Yan aristocratic clan. Furthermore, they were on friendly terms with a major Northern Yan sect like the Drifting Snow City. With such a relationship, the Azure Water Sword sect naturally didn't need to be courteous and wasn't afraid of them. Furthermore, the Azure Water Sword sect had already declined to such an extent, and this Shen Bai was a nobody in the martial world. What did he have to be afraid of? Shen Bai shot his gaze towards Feng Huai and said coldly, "Who are you?" Feng Huai stood up and said indifferently, "Southern Yan, Feng Huai." Shen Bai immediately sneered. For the first time, there was an obvious change in the expression on his face. It was now filled with disdain and contempt. And nobody from a mediocre aristocratic clan dares to bark at me? Scram. As his voice faded, Shenbai waved his hand and an icy blue sword chi whizzed over, heading straight for Feng Huai. The sword chi was extremely fast, and no one present was able to react in time. This Azure Water Sword sect disciple was actually so arrogant and actually made a move in front of so many people. Did he think he was Xiahou Wujiang or Chu Xiao? Hence, no one actually stopped it for a moment. Even Feng Huai, who bore the brunt of the attack, was shocked. By the time he wanted to make a move to stop it, the sword chi was already in front of him. Right at this moment, a cold snort suddenly echoed. Bai Wuji's eyes bloomed with a cold and eerie light. Astral chi condensed in mid-air, and Shenbai's sword chi was actually forcefully frozen and shattered under Bai Wuji's gaze. This was the extreme north's drifting snow cities by clan's secret technique, Ice Soul Divine Eye. It was said that after reaching the completion stage, even the primordial spirit could be frozen and sealed. Feng Huai was someone he brought over, and he was also the first to allow Feng Huai to sit beside him. To put it bluntly, one must look at the owner before beating a dog. You, Shenbai, are so arrogant, but have you asked Bai Wuji? During this period of time, Bai Wuji was also very depressed, and a large part of it was because of Chu Xiao. It was fine if he didn't encounter Chu Xiao previously. Bai Wuji also knew that his chances of obtaining first place in this divine weapon conference wasn't high. But after encountering Chu Xiao, he was suppressed step by step. In the end, he didn't even have the qualifications to exchange blows with Chu Xiao. This was undoubtedly a very sullen matter. Therefore, from the time he met Chu Xiao in the Dragon Assembly Pavilion until now, Bai Wuji's heart had been suppressing a fire that he wanted to vent. In the end, Shenbai delivered himself to his doorstep. The Azure Water Sword sect and their Northern Yen sects already had some friction. Previously, when they were pursuing Chu Xiao, their drifting snow city and mortuary manor had a direct conflict with the Azure Water Sword sect. This caused their sects to unwillingly withdraw from the Wei County. With the new and old grudges added together, Bai Wuji didn't have the slightest intention to restrain himself. He immediately grabbed the silver spear in his hand and burst forth with Dipper Chi. With an incomparably powerful aura, he stabbed at Shenbai. A frog at the bottom of a well, and you dare to be arrogant here? This isn't your Wei County, where your Azure Water Sword sect can cover the sky with one hand. Today, I will teach you a lesson and let you, a frog at the bottom of a well, know what rules are. On the silver spear, strands of frost blossomed. Boundless chi and blood were attached to the spear, making it look extremely ferocious and domineering. On the opposite side, when Shenbai saw Bai Wuji's attack, his eyes immediately burst out with a hint of radiance. After cultivating the martial Dao for more than 10 years, this was Shenbai's first time stepping into the martial world. Shenbai still remembered what his master, Lu Gongyuan, once told him. Once he stepped into the martial world, he would no longer have the qualifications to turn back. Right now, Shenbai's shoulders were shouldering the entire Azure Water Sword sect's prestige and prestige. To become famous in the martial world, to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat in this battle. He, Shenbai, wanted the entire martial world to see his sword, to see the Azure Water Sword sect's sword. Therefore, the moment Bai Wuji thrust out with his spear, Shenbai's sword was also unsheathed. It was an extremely magnificent long sword. It was unknown what material was used to forge it, but the sword body was actually as clear and transparent as a sapphire. But on the edge of the sword, there was actually a sharp sword intent. As the sword descended, the icy blue Dipper Chi condensed into raindrops, and each drop contained an extremely strong sword chi. But when Bai Wuji approached, the rain-like sword chi merged into one, turning into a boundlessly sharp sword light, tearing the sky and splitting the earth. Under the sharp sword light condensed from tens of thousands of sword chi raindrops, Bai Wuji's protective Dipper Chi was instantly torn apart. The chi and blood on the long spear were dispersed, and even the long spear in his hand was blasted away, leaving a deep sword mark on the body. Under the powerful force, Bai Wuji was directly slashed away by the sword. The sword chi entered his body and tore the meridians in his body. This immediately caused him to spit out a mouthful of blood, looking at Shenbai with a horrified gaze. 3 flower at one's prominence. This Shenbai had actually reached the 3 flower at one's prominence realm. At this moment, everyone present was speechless, looking at Shenbai with a strange expression. Just how many young experts had been attracted by this god weapon conference? Including Shen Bai, there were 4 experts in the 3-flower at one's prominence realm. Moreover, Shen Bai's combat strength was also extremely strong. Although he was a level higher than Bai Wuji was still a young elite from the drifting snow city in the far north. He was also very famous in the Jianghu. Yet, under Shen Bai's sword, he was already seriously injured, not even able to withstand a single move. This kind of combat strength was simply terrifying. Putting his sword back into its sheath, Shen Bai looked at the disciple of the Mirror Lake Villa and said with a blank expression, "Now, do I have the right to sit in the front row?" The disciple of the Mirror Lake Villa was almost scared out of his wits. At this moment, Cheng Dongwang, who had just left, rushed back with a helpless expression. He had just gone to the back to arrange some things, but he didn't expect to see a fight here again. This time, it was even fiercer, and Bai Wuji was seriously injured. Why were these young people so angry? When he was young and wandering in the Jianghu, he was not like these people now, who would start a fight at the slightest disagreement, and they were all greeting each other to death. "Young friend Shen, please don't be offended by our poor hospitality. Young friend Shen, you are naturally qualified to sit in the front row." But at this time, Cheng Dongwang's tone changed, and he said in a deep voice, "But now the God Weapon Conference is about to begin. If you have any grievances, you can settle it on the stage. Can't you all wait for a few minutes? If anyone makes a move now, it means that you are not giving face to my hidden sword villa. Don't blame me for bullying the weak and not showing mercy." Cheng Dongwang was also completely annoyed, and he began to warn the young martial artists present. After the warning, Cheng Dongwang also immediately sent people to carry Bai Wuji away for treatment. The disciple of the drifting snow city in the far north was injured in the God Weapon Conference. If he did not take good care of him, and something happened, wouldn't the drifting snow city vent their anger on him? When Bai Wuji was being carried away, he still had a look of disbelief on his face. He had come to the God Weapon meeting to make a name for himself. But before the meeting had even begun, he had been suppressed by Chu Xiu. And now, he had been defeated by a nameless person with a single strike, becoming his opponent's stepping stone. The ranking on the Tiger and Dragon leaderboard was based on either one's battle record or one's reputation. Back then, Chu Xiu was able to push him down, partly because of his battle record, and partly because of the conflict between the wind-sweeping tower and the drifting snow city. But this time, he was defeated by Shen Bai. Needless to say, his ranking on the Tiger and Dragon leaderboard would immediately be replaced by Shen Bai, and he would become one of Shen Bai's battle records on the Tiger and Dragon leaderboard. Thinking of this, Bai Wuji's heart was filled with anger and unwillingness. It affected the meridians in his body that had been torn by the sword qi. He was so angry that he spat out another mouthful of blood and fainted. Chapter 245. Winner takes all. This phrase could explain 99% of the fights in the martial world. No matter how illustrious Bai Wuji's background was, no matter how great his reputation was, he was still defeated, and it was a miserable defeat. Therefore, no one paid any more attention to Bai Wuji. All eyes were on Shen Bai. The Azure Water Sword sect's presence among the 7 sects and 8 schools was extremely low, so low that as long as the Azure Water Sword sect's disciples didn't appear, most people in the martial world would forget about this sect. But now, after seeing Shen Bai's sword, everyone remembered that there was still a sect in the Wei County that was ranked as one of the 7 sects and 8 schools. Some martial artists saw Shen Bai and even thought of the former Azure Water Sword sect's sect master, who once dominated the martial world, the famous river-sinking sword, Lu Gongyuan. Sometimes, the rise of a sect depended on one person, like Chu Kuanga and Guan Siyu from the Guanzhong torture room, or Yan Huainan from the divine martial sect. At this moment, everyone looked at Shen Bai. Obviously he was the true talent that the Azure Water Sword sect had nurtured over the years, a stunning figure that could revitalize the sect. Shen Bai sat in the front row. He didn't even look at Bai Wuji. A mere loser was no longer qualified for his attention. Therefore, Shen Bai's gaze was on Chu Xiu. There was no hatred in his eyes, not even the slightest change in his expression. It was still incomparably cold. Chu Xiu had never seen Shen Bai before, but as the enemy who killed his brother, Shen Bai naturally knew Chu Xiu. Previously, when the Azure Water Sword sect didn't manage to capture Chu Xiu, Shen Bai only felt regret. But this time, before he even arrived at the G state, He already heard of Chu Xiu's name. Shenbai found it hard to accept that this person, who he could easily crush in the past, was now famous among the younger generation of the martial world. But compared to 2 years ago, the current Shenbai was much more mature. He knew what he wanted to do, and he knew what he should do. He carried the expectations of his master, Lu Gongyuan, and the entire Azure Water Sword sect on his shoulders. Since he stepped into the martial world, he could only win and not lose. Pressing forward courageously, it was better to advance than to stop. Bai Wuji was his stepping stone to fame, and so was Chu Xiu. Shenbai slowly raised the long sword in his hand. The sword was not unsheathed, but he turned the hilt around and pointed at Chu Xiu 3 times. This caused the expressions of everyone present to change abruptly. This was a way for swordsmen to provoke their opponents, or it could be said that it was a gesture to issue a challenge. When the sword and the saber met, there was no question of life or death. Although it was silent, this gesture of challenge was even more direct than verbal provocation. Usually, unless it was a life-and-death feud, the other party would not do such a thing. However, they didn't understand. Did Chu Xiu and Shenbai know each other before? Shenbai had just stepped into Zhonghu. How did the two of them form such an irreconcilable grudge? If Shenbai was only here to make a name for himself, he wouldn't have to be so ruthless, right? No one knew the inside story, but they were somewhat impressed by Chu Xiu's ability to attract hatred. In this eastern Qiland, he made a lot of friends. Mo Tianlin and the other two were sitting next to him. However, it was obvious that he had more enemies, and they were all the strongest ones. For example, Xiahou Wujiang, Tong Kai-tai, and Shen Bai, who severely injured by Wuji as soon as he arrived, were all at the Three-Flower Realm. Mo Tianlin, who was next to Chu Xiu, asked, "Do you have a grudge with this guy before? When did the Azure Water Sword sect have such a young expert?" Chu Xiu said indifferently, "I am a martial artist from Wei County. When I left Wei County, part of the reason was that I killed his brother. In fact, Shen Bai was still very famous in Wei County. After all, he was the last disciple of the Azure Water Sword sect's sect master. It was just that he had never stepped into Zhonghu. After not flying for 3 years, he soared to the sky. After not flying for 3 years, he shocked the world with a single brilliant feat. Shenbai was already accepted as a disciple by Lu Gongyuan when he was young. He didn't just wait for 1 or 2 or 3 years. Obviously, he planned to shock the world with a single brilliant feat. Mo Tianlin calculated the time. When Chu Xiu became famous, it was when he was an assassin in the Blue Dragon Society. In this way, he wasn't even at the innate stage when he was in Wei County. As a result, he killed the brother of the Azure Water Sword sect's head disciple. This ability to cause trouble also made Mo Tianlin a little speechless. "Be careful later," Mo Tianlin reminded. Chu Xiu nodded and said indifferently, "In fact, I am always careful. Anyway, I have offended many people in this Zhonghu. Adding Shen Bai to the list doesn't make a difference. In fact, most people in the Zhonghu should have an awareness from the moment they step into Zhonghu. Either kill or be killed. Once you let your guard down, then you are not far from death." Mo Tianlin nodded with some understanding. After the two of them chatted for a while, the Divine Weapon Conference officially began. On the north side of the high platform, a group of martial artists walked out. Among them, there were 2 people who were the most eye-catching. One of them was a tall and mighty elder. Although his hair and beard were all white, his skin was rosy and he looked dignified without being angry. This elder was the renowned blacksmith master, Mo Yezi, the previous pavilion master of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. In fact, in terms of strength, Mo Yezi also had the cultivation of a martial Dao master. However, this martial Dao master was a pseudo-martial Dao master. He only had the cultivation level, but not the actual strength. Why did martial artists learn martial arts? To put it bluntly, it was to fight and kill. The word martial also meant to fight with a spear. Only those who could kill could be considered the true martial way. As for the Divine Weapon Pavilion, they were infatuated with refining weapons. To them, the battle prowess of the martial way was secondary. To them, inner force was only a method to forge weapons. Therefore, although the disciples of the Divine Weapon Pavilion also cultivated inner force, 99% of the Divine Weapon Pavilion's martial artists did not even know a single move or half a martial skill. They would not even fight with others in their entire lives. However, even if the Divine Weapon Pavilion's combat strength was low, their status in the Jianghu was not low. After all, no sect would dare to offend these blacksmith masters who stood aloof from worldly affairs. Moreover, the Divine Weapon Pavilion was not without the ability to protect itself. Legend had it that the Divine Weapon Pavilion had a peerless godly weapon that had already given birth to a complete weapon spirit. It could protect the Divine Weapon Pavilion for a lifetime. When the peerless godly weapon was born, it had earth-shattering power. Legend had it that it could easily kill a martial Dao master. However, this was only a legend. After so many years, no one had actually touched the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Therefore, no one had seen this peerless godly weapon that only existed in legends. Beside Mo Yezi was a well-dressed middle-aged man in a brocade robe. His hair was neatly combed, and he held a long sword in his hand. This man was the manor master of the Hidden Sword Villa, Chang Tingshan's younger brother, seven-part sword, Chang Tingfeng. This man was a true martial Dao master. His talent was even greater than his brother, the manor master Chang Tingshan. However, Chang Tingfeng had been hurt by love in his early years. It even left a mental scar. In the end, he begged the Bodhi Zen Monastery's master to help him. He used the Bodhi Zen Monastery's secret technique, the Wang Nianwu Zen scripture, to erase a part of his memory. Although he had completely forgotten about the hurt, his mental state was incomplete. Therefore, he could only use 70% of his sword will. This was why it was called the seven-part sword. However, although Chang Tingfeng could only use 70% of his sword will, his strength was still enough to look down on others. He could not be underestimated. Mo Yezi stood up and looked at the surrounding warriors. He said in a low voice, "Everyone, since the heroes of the Jianghu are all here, I will not explain further. Everyone should know what the God Weapon Conference is about. God weapons have spirits. Especially natural God weapons, they must have a master that they can recognize in order to unleash their full potential. The weapons that I have forged have always been the weapons that choose the master, not the other way around. In the battles of the Jianghu, a martial artist may have countless weapons in his hands, but a weapon with a true spiritual nature will only have you as its master. Therefore, I hope that all of you will not disappoint the saber and sword in your hands." Mo Yezi was a little obsessed with weapons, but everyone could understand. For most martial artists, the time that their weapons accompanied them was even longer than that of their relatives. Mo Yezi continued, "All right, I'll cut to the chase. The main character of this year's God Weapon Convention is naturally the God Weapon. However, the God Weapon has yet to be fully formed. This time, this old man is prepared to use a new method to refine a weapon. As for what I'll be able to refine in the end, even this old man has no idea. However, if it is successful, the God Weapon that is born will have unlimited potential. It may even become a 9th Revolution God Weapon." Everyone's breathing quickened when they heard this. For the majority of martial artists, a divine weapon was an existence that could only be encountered by luck. Apart from the Divine Weapon Pavilion, there were only a handful of other forces that could forge a divine weapon. Most of them had to spend a long period of time to nurture their 6th Revolution precious weapons to give birth to spirituality, or they could find precious materials and ask a master refiner to refine these materials into the precious weapon, turning it into a divine weapon. Moreover, the majority of these divine weapons were only at the 7th Revolution. It was extremely difficult to upgrade them to the 8th Revolution or even the 9th Revolution. Furthermore, every time a divine weapon advanced by a revolution, its power would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. If the godly weapon that Mo Yezi forged really had the potential to become a 9th Revolution godly weapon, then this godly weapon could definitely be passed down as a supreme treasure of a peak sect. Looking at the crowd, Mo Yezi waved his hand. Immediately, a few disciples of the Mirror Lake Manor walked out and arrived at the center of the 5 arenas. They pressed some kind of button and in an instant, a huge furnace rose from the ground. There was even a formation around it. In an instant, an astonishing amount of heat exploded out. Chapter 246. The huge furnace burned with an astonishing amount of heat. The flames were no ordinary flames. Under the support of the formation, the flames actually emitted a faint blue light, appearing incomparably mystical. In the middle of the furnace, there was a liquid metal constantly churning. The strangest thing was that the liquid metal actually had countless runes flashing on it. It was extremely mystical. Seeing this scene, everyone present was stunned. Was this the so-called god weapon? Why did it feel like there wasn't even an embryo? Mo Yezi spoke in a low voice. Weapons are weapons of slaughter. Throughout history, when a weapon is first forged, it has never been tainted by sharp killing intent. This time, I'm preparing to use a refining method that I've been researching for over 10 years. Using a formation to refine a weapon. What you see right now is the embryo of this weapon. However, I did not allow it to take shape. Instead, I allowed it to continuously circulate within the formation. Later on, when you fight in the arena, the sharp killing intent that you produce will be channeled into the embryo through the formation, allowing it to take shape. In the end, even I don't know what kind of weapon the embryo will become after absorbing enough sharpness of slaughter chi. It all depends on the type and quality of the sharpness of slaughter chi that you're good at. Therefore, this time the God Weapon Conference will not only be forged by me, but also by the geniuses present here. The final appearance of the God Weapon will also be decided by you. After hearing Mo Yezi's explanation, everyone came to a sudden realization. No wonder before the God Weapon Conference began, Mo Yezi said that he did not know what kind of God weapon he would forge this time. In the beginning, everyone felt that it was a little strange. A master refiner actually said that he did not know what kind of weapon he would forge. Was this not a joke? Only now did everyone understand what he meant. They also understood why the Hidden Sword Villa and Mo Yezi had made such a big fuss. Without them, Mo Yezi's new refining method would not have been successful. After Mo Yezi finished speaking, Chung Tingfeng stood up and spoke in a low voice. Grandmaster Mo Yezi has already said everything he needed to say. The materials for this divine weapon convention were provided by our Hidden Sword Mountain Manor, and the person who forged the divine weapon was Grandmaster Mo Yezi. Similarly, this also requires the cooperation of all of you. In the end, the ownership of the divine weapon is clear to all. The divine weapon chose its master, and only the strongest could become the master of the divine weapon. There was no such thing as cheating. As for the arena competition, the rules are also very simple. The 5 arenas will start the competition at the same time, and the opponents will be decided by drawing lots. At this point, Chung Tingfeng paused and said, "Everyone here is from the same Jianghu. This time, the God Weapon Conference is mainly about sparring and exchanging pointers. Therefore, there will be martial artists from the Hidden Sword Mountain Villa as judges. This is to prevent swords from being blind and fists from being careless. If he couldn't control his strength properly after unleashing his true fire, it wouldn't be pretty. Of course, if any of you really want to fight to the death, the Hidden Sword Villa will not stop you, but both of you must agree." Chung Tingfeng's last sentence was obviously meant for Chu Xiao and the others. In normal sparring, everyone controlled their strength, and basically, they wouldn't even get hurt. However, looking at the conflict between Chu Xiao and the others just now, it was obvious that this matter wouldn't end so easily. If something really happened, the Hidden Sword Mountain Villa wouldn't be able to stop them, but it wouldn't be good if they didn't stop them either. Therefore, it was better to make things clear first. When something happened, even if the sects behind them wanted to find trouble, they wouldn't be able to find the Hidden Sword Mountain Villa. After explaining the rules, a few disciples of the Mirror Lake Villa walked over with boxes. In the boxes, there were heavenly stems, earthly branches, and even hours written on them. The martial artists who drew the same number, after the people from the Mirror Lake Villa called out their numbers, could go up to the arena to compete. The first few martial artists to go up were the kind that didn't have any fame. They knew that there was no hope of getting the divine weapon, so both sides just sparred normally, treating it as an exchange. There were basically no real fights, so the progress was very fast. The second batch of martial artists to go up included Xie Xiao Lu. His opponent was a martial artist in his 30s, who was only in the Xiantian realm. Obviously, he wasn't here to do anything. Without waiting for Xie Xiao Lu to speak, the martial artist cupped his hands and said with a smile, "I am Lin Zhao from the Western Chu Kingdom. It is my honor to be able to stand on the same arena as young Master Xie. However, I don't dare to fight against an outstanding person like young Master Xie. So this round, I admit defeat." After saying that, Lin Zhao cupped his hands and directly walked down the arena, without any hesitation. Seeing this scene, everyone present thought to themselves that this was a smart person. In fact, those who came to participate in the Divine Weapon Conference, other than Xie Xiao Lu and Chu Xiao, most people didn't even think that they could get a divine weapon. Therefore, most of them came to watch the show, and some of them came to make friends with the elites of the Jianghu. Just like Lin Zhao just now, although he had decisively surrendered, he had stated his name and origin, leaving an impression on Xie Xiaolu. This couldn't be considered a favor, because he couldn't beat Xie Xiaolu. However, if he met Xie Xiaolu again in the Western Chu Kingdom, he could bring up today's scene on the arena to reminisce about the past. This was the way of a smart person. Following that, most of the martial artists acted like this. If they met someone with similar strength, they would exchange pointers, but if they met someone like Chu Xiao, who was famous, their opponent would directly surrender. After a few rounds, 90% of the martial artists present had already been eliminated. There were even some who didn't draw their lots and directly gave up. These people were just here to watch the show. They weren't interested in making friends with the disciples of the big sections. Chu Xiao stared at the divine weapon embryo in the center of the furnace. He felt that the melted metal had a familiar aura. There were also some people fighting fiercely in the arena, but it might be because the real strength of the people fighting was too low, so the sharp qi collected by the array was not much. It only made the flames in the furnace a little whiter. The energy of the golden spear was sharp, so the energy it showed was naturally white. Since the flames changed color, it meant that Mo Yezi's refining method was still effective. However, at this moment, Chu Xiao discovered that someone was also staring at the furnace. It was a very strange martial artist. His whole body was covered in a black robe, and he also had a black robe hat on his head. His dressing was not strange. After all, the styles of the three countries in the Central Plains were different, especially in West Chu. There were also some martial artists who dressed strangely. Moreover, Chu Xiao had some impression of this martial artist. At the beginning, he didn't reveal his strength. In the end, he met an innate stage martial artist in his first battle, so he revealed the strength of the innate stage. When he met a martial artist in the inner qi realm, his strength was revealed to be in the inner qi realm. In the last 2 rounds, he met a martial artist in the physical invulnerability realm, and this time, his strength was also in the physical invulnerability realm. Even now, Chu Xiao couldn't determine whether the opponent had the strength of the 3-flower realm or not. This person's ability to hide his aura was definitely the best among martial artists of the same level. At this moment, the person seemed to feel that Chu Xiao was paying attention to him. The martial artist immediately looked back, and a strange look appeared in his eyes, but he didn't say anything. At this moment, the people from the Hidden Sword Villa on the stage called out Chu Xiao's number. Chu Xiao leaped up and directly crossed over to one of the rings. In the first few rounds, Chu Xiao didn't make a move at all. His opponents immediately admitted defeat when they heard his name. This time, however, Chu Xiao's opponent was a martial artist in the physical invulnerability realm of Northern Yan origin. He was about 30 years old and held a strange machete in his hand. After seeing Chu Xiao, the martial artist's face showed a conflicted expression. The reason why he was conflicted was simple. This person was with Bai Wuji and the others. This time, there were fewer martial artists from the Northern Yan, and Bai Wuji was the one with the most powerful background. So, naturally, they would gather around Bai Wuji. He had seen the relationship between Bai Wuji and Chu Xiao. If it was someone else, he would surrender. But now it was Chu Xiao. If he surrendered without even fighting, would Bai Wuji vent his anger on him? But if he fought, it was certain that he wouldn't be able to defeat Chu Xiao. Moreover, he had seen Chu Xiao's killing intent and madness with his own eyes. He even wanted to kill the young miss of the divine martial sect and cripple the elite disciples of the Sword King city. If he went up to fight him, wouldn't Chu Xiao cripple him too? In fact, this martial artist was worrying too much. Chu Xiao didn't even know who he was. He didn't even put Bai Wuji in his eyes, let alone Bai Wuji's followers. But he was wasting time here. Chu Xiao frowned and said, "Are you going to fight or not?" A judge from the Hidden Sword Villa at the 5 Chi's origin realm also urged, "If you want to fight, then hurry up. If you don't have the confidence, then just surrender." In the eyes of this judge, there was no suspense at all in this battle. Not to mention Chu Xiao's fierce reputation. Even if an ordinary physical invulnerability realm martial artist fought against a 3-flower realm martial artist, the chance of winning was not high. What was this guy hesitating about? At this moment, a voice suddenly came, "If you don't want to fight him, how about I do it?" Everyone present immediately looked in the direction of the voice. They saw Shen Bai standing up with a long sword in his hand. He looked at Chu Xiu with an extremely sharp look in his eyes. At the same time, an extremely sharp sword chi was released around him, causing the martial artists around him to involuntarily retreat with a look of horror in their eyes. Chapter 247. Shen Bai's sudden provocation caused the surrounding people to instantly turn their attention to Shen Bai and Chu Xiu. They had all seen Shen Bai's provocative actions just now. Now that Shen Bai had stepped forward again, it was clear that the enmity between him and Chu Xiu wasn't small. It was to the extent that he couldn't wait to fight with Chu Xiu. Seeing Shen Bai's actions, the martial artist who originally wanted to challenge Chu Xiu felt relieved and quickly said, "I have no opinion." He was in a dilemma. Now it was time for Shen Bai, who had severely injured by Wuxia. Since both of them were enemies of Chu Xiu, let them kill each other. Shen Bai looked at the hidden sword villa's judge and said in a deep voice, "Since there will only be one winner in the end, it doesn't matter if it's earlier or later. I am not breaking the rules by doing this." The hidden sword villa's judge frowned and quickly looked at Cheng Tingfeng. Cheng Tingfeng thought for a moment and asked Chu Xiu, "Do you agree?" He couldn't be bothered with the grudges between these junior martial artists. Since they wanted to fight, it had nothing to do with the hidden sword villa as long as they agreed. Chu Xiu's face suddenly revealed a smile. "Since someone can't wait, then I am willing to accompany." Cheng Tingfeng said in a deep voice, "Since you are ready to fight, then don't forget what I said before. If anything happens, my hidden sword villa will not be responsible." Cheng Tingfeng wasn't afraid of the Azure Water Sword sect or the Guanzhong torture room. But if they were to seek an explanation from the hidden sword villa because of their own disciples, Cheng Tingfeng would find it troublesome. Chu Xiu and Shen Bai both nodded. From the moment Chu Xiu saw Shen Bai, he knew that this matter wouldn't be easily resolved. This was karma, and it needed to be repaid. One side stood, while the other lay down. Only then would this karma be truly resolved. Seeing that both sides had agreed, the cultivator hurriedly walked down the stage. He would let these two guys fight first. He would just watch from the sidelines. In the arena, Shen Bai looked straight at Chu Xiu, but there was no longer any hatred in his eyes, only the desire to fight. It wasn't that he didn't hate Lu Zongyuan. When Chu Xiu had appeared in the Wei Prefecture, he had even specially begged Lu Zongyuan to use the power of the Azure Water Sword sect to kill Chu Xiu. However, from that time onwards, Shen Bai also knew what the burden on his shoulders was. From then on, he buried this hatred in his heart. In the entire Shen family, although the other people were related to him by blood, to Shen Bai, they were just strangers. The only family he truly acknowledged was Shen Mo. Chu Xiu had killed his only family member. This hatred was something that Shen Bai had to take revenge for, but revenge was no longer his only goal. Bai Wuji was his stepping stone, and now Chu Xiu was still his stepping stone. After the Divine Weapon Conference, Shen Bai wanted the entire martial world to hear his name, and know that his Azure Water Sword sect had once again flourished. Looking at Chu Xiu, Shen Bai said in a deep voice, "Chu Xiu, did you not expect me to appear here?" Chu Xiu nodded. "I didn't expect it. But when I saw you, I thought of Shen Mo who died under my sword. Although you are blood brothers, your personalities are completely different. You are much stronger than that trash." Shen Bai's eyes revealed a trace of dense killing intent, but he didn't get angry. He only said in a cold voice, "I just want to ask you one thing. Why did you kill Shen Mo back then? Your Chu clan met with misfortune. If Shen Mo died in the hands of others, it would be fine. But he died in your hands. Why?" During that battle, everyone in the Chu clan died. Only Chu Xiu survived. Only Chu Xiu knew the truth. Chu Xiu looked at Shen Bai with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. "What's in it for me to say it?" Shen Bai said coldly, "If you don't say it, you will die a horrible death. If you say it, you will die a quick death." Chu Xiu shook his head. "If that's the case, then you will never have the chance to know this secret in this lifetime. Overconfidence becomes arrogance. I don't know who gave you the confidence to say this. 2 years ago, you were the eldest disciple of Azure Water Sword sect. I was just a nobody from a small clan. But now, I, Chu Xiu, have become the patrol inspector of the Guanzhong torture room. I am ranked top 20 on the Longhu list. And you, Shen Bai, are still the eldest disciple of Azure Water Sword sect. What right do you have to say this to me?" Shen Bai slowly drew the long sword from his waist and said, "It is not easy to achieve what you have. If I were in your position, I might not be as good as you. But unfortunately, there are no ifs in this world. I didn't eat or drink in front of the sword comprehension stone. I comprehended the sword for 3 months and entered the 3-flower realm. For today, I endured for 10 years and didn't step into the martial world. I memorized all the sword manuals of Azure Water Sword Sect. All of this was for him to soar into the sky today. Just now, that Bai Wuji wasn't even qualified to be my stepping stone, but you, Chu Xiao, are qualified. It's fine if you don't tell me those secrets. Once you die, everything will end." When Shen Bai said this, he carried a strong sense of confidence, or perhaps it could be said that he was conceited. As the eldest disciple of Azure Water Sword Sect, Lu Gongyuan once said that he would hand over the future of Azure Water Sword Sect to him when he was personally taught by Lu Gongyuan. From then on, Shen Bai knew that he was different. If it wasn't for his talent and the potential he displayed, Lu Gongyuan, a martial Dao master, wouldn't have put so much effort into betting the future of Azure Water Sword Sect on him. For so many years, Lu Gongyuan stopped him from stepping into the martial world. He wanted him to be able to amaze the world and soar into the sky. This time, Shen Bai was aiming for the top 10 of the Dragon and Tiger leaderboard. With Bai Wuji's strength, he was not even qualified to be his stepping stone. Only Chu Xiao was qualified to be his stepping stone. His real enemy was Xiahou Wujiang, who was also from a top faction and was ranked top 10 on the Longhu list. Sweeping away the stepping stone of Chu Xiao was just his first step into the martial world. Unsheathing his long sword, Shen Bai didn't waste any more words with Chu Xiao. To be precise, his words weren't just for Chu Xiao, but for everyone present. Their Azure Water Sword Sect was back. In the previous generation, when Azure Water Sword Sect was flourishing, it was Lu Gongyuan who dominated the martial world. In this generation, it was Shen Bai who was famous. When the sword was unsheathed, the weather changed. When Shen Bai stabbed out with his sword, the water vapor in the air, which was almost invisible to the naked eye, was transformed by the stellar energy and condensed into a huge icicle. It was several feet long and looked like an ice crystal sword. It directly slashed at Chu Xiao from the sky. The powerful and sharp sword Qi tore through the air and made a deafening sonic boom. When the sword pierced out, the expressions of everyone present changed. Even Chang Tingfeng looked at Shen Bai in astonishment. The power of this sword strike paled in comparison to the one Shen Bai used to heavily injure Bai Wuji. Seeing the power of Shen Bai's sword, even Mo Tianlin and Xie Xiaolu were somewhat worried for Chu Xiao. Where did this guy come from? How could his strength be so terrifying? But what was even more terrifying was that Azure Water Sword Sect had such a talented disciple. They had been hiding it all this time and only allowed him to come out and roam the martial world now. Whether it was Azure Water Sword Sect's forbearance or Shen Bai's patience, in this martial world that prioritized fame and fortune, they were both terrifying. But on Chu Xiao's side, he was somewhat mentally prepared for Shen Bai's display of strength. Since Lu Gongyuan had hidden Shen Bai for more than 10 years before letting him out, it was imaginable how high Lu Gongyuan's expectations of Shen Bai were. He basically treated Shen Bai as the future hope of Azure Water Sword Sect. With the strength of Lin Kaiyun and Bai Wuji, their talents were considered decent and could be considered as elites. In the future, there was a possibility that they would inherit the sect and become the leader. But this was only a possibility. If Shen Bai was on the same level as them, Lu Gongyuan wouldn't have placed so much importance on him. Therefore, it was normal for Shen Bai to display such prowess. Otherwise, after enduring for more than 10 years to nurture a disciple with the strength of Bai Wuji, the Azure Water Sword Sect should have been exterminated earlier. But strength wasn't something that only depended on one's cultivation level. Shen Bai endured for more than 10 years and gathered all of Azure Water Sword Sect's resources and painstakingly cultivated. But Chu Xiao was the exact opposite. He was constantly fighting and rolling in the martial world. Chu Xiao wanted to see if Shen Bai's painstakingly cultivated strength was stronger or if Chu Xiao's bloodshed in the martial world was stronger. When Shen Bai's sword pierced over, Chu Xiao's red sleeve blade was already unsheathed. A pitch-black demonic qi lingered on his blade, making Chu Xiao look extremely evil and terrifying. Seeing this scene, be it the Mirror Lake Manor's martial artists or the Hidden Sword Manor's members, they all frowned slightly. After all, they were all from the righteous sections. Now that they saw Chu Xiao unscrupulously displaying his demonic arts, they still weren't used to it. But this divine weapon conference didn't restrict the righteous and demonic sections. Even Tong Kai Tai was here, so it wasn't a problem for Chu Xiao to use demonic arts. Even though the Guanzhong torture room was considered an orthodox sect, they didn't reject demonic arts. If the Guanzhong torture room didn't care, why would they care so much? At this moment, Chu Xiao's Avicii 3 blades slashed out. The icicle shattered inch by inch in front of Chu Xiao's demonic chi blade. The closer Chu Xiao's blade presence got, the more intense the demonic chi surged. In the end, on the blade of Chu Xiao's blade, Chu Xiao's eyes were filled with endless demonic chi. His blade presence naturally transitioned from the first blade of the Avicii 3 blades to the second blade. Under the monstrous demonic chi, the giant icicle shattered with a loud bang. The demonic chi blade that was filled with hatred slashed directly at Shen Bai. Chapter 248. As long as Chu Xiao's 3 blades of Avicii was able to suppress the demonic chi backlash, its power would definitely be one of the most powerful moves among the same rank of martial arts. It would hurt both the opponent and the user, which was extremely extreme. In the past, when Fei Mo from the Sword King City fought with Chu Xiao, even if he used all his strength, he was still struck by Chu Xiao's blade until he vomited blood. Now, his opponent was Shen Bai. When faced with Chu Xiao's blade, Shen Bai did not retreat but instead advanced. The sword momentum in his hand suddenly changed from the incomparably sharp to the majestic sword momentum. In an instant, the endless sword chi swept over like a great river. At this time, the crowd could not even see the appearance of Chu Xiao and Shen Bai clearly. Both of them were completely covered by the sword chi. The crowd could only vaguely see Chu Xiao's black blade light crisscrossing in the sword chi. Kanglan Vast Sea, sweeping the world. The Kanglan sword sex sword technique was originally extremely overbearing. Otherwise, Lu Gongyuan would not have the nickname of river-sinking sword in the past. Right now, Shen Bai had also executed the Azure Water Sword sex sword art to the extreme. Chu Xiao's Avicii 3 blades might be strong, but Shen Bai was still able to utilize this unending and powerful sword chi to block it. The battle between the two of them had completely subverted everyone's understanding of the 3 Flower Realm martial artists. There were also many 3 Flower Realm martial artists in the Mirror Lake Villa and the Hidden Sword Villa, but none of them had the strength of true chi that could compare to these two. With such a strong foundation, even a martial artist at the 5 Chi's origin realm might not be able to compare. Monsters. 2 monsters. The reason why Chu Xiao could have such a strong foundation was not because of talent, but because of his own skills and fortuitous encounters. When it came to talent, Chu Xiao was actually very mediocre. But whether it was the Xiantian skill, the glazed golden silk goo, or the great primordial chaos technique that he obtained later, these things had accumulated Chu Xiao's talent step by step, accumulating step by step to the current terrifying level. But Shen Bai was the exact opposite. His innate talent was already extremely astonishing. Furthermore, he was personally taught by Lu Zongyuan in the Azure Water Sword sect. Outsiders couldn't imagine what kind of life he had been living for the past 10 years. They had basically eliminated all temptations from the outside world. Other than ascetic cultivation, there was only ascetic cultivation. They were almost the same as the ascetic cultivators of the Buddhist sections. Relying on his talent and hard work to build up his foundation, he was not inferior to Chu Xiao. At this moment, in the vast sword aura storm, Chu Xiao received the demonic chi from the Avicii Dao's 3 sabers into his body. He even burst out with the power of his blood-refined divine dipper, and directly used his strength to clash against Shen Bai's sword aura. In the past, Chu Xiao actually liked to use strength to suppress others. Because no matter if it was a martial artist of the same rank or a martial artist that was stronger than him, the accumulation of strength was actually inferior to him. But now, he had finally met his match. The Azure Water Sword Sex majestic sword aura was displayed to the extreme by Shen Bai, and Chu Xiao was actually unable to break through for a moment. Amidst the sword aura, Shen Bai said with an expressionless face, "I said before, you can't beat me. You have cultivated an evil demonic Dao cultivation technique. Although the explosive power is indeed astonishing, how long can you last? In the end, I don't need to make a move to kill you. You will die from the backlash of that demonic Dao." Chu Xiao suddenly raised his head and revealed a smear of radiance in his eyes. "Who told you that I only know demonic arts?" Using the right to counter the strange, and using the strange to counter the right. Chu Xiu's martial Dao actually didn't have a fixed path. What he pursued was the ultimate destructive power. As long as he could kill people, it didn't matter what martial Dao he used. If this didn't work, then he would change to another type. Chu Xiu, who was originally surrounded by demonic qi, formed the inner lion seal to suppress himself. Then he quickly blasted out a fist seal. In a split second, the radius of several feet around him was entangled by the astral qi. It was like a large net, sealing the field and freezing the space. Formation word formula. Wisdom fist seal. Shen Bai's majestic sword aura seemed to be in slow motion within the range of the wisdom fist seal. It was entangled by Chu Xiu's astral qi and imprisoned within. Chu Xiu's figure took advantage of this opportunity to shatter the majestic astral qi in front of him. His hand formed the great Vajra wheel seal and directly collided with Chu Xiu's astral qi. Shen Bai frowned. He had never seen Chu Xiu in action before. He had never experienced this mystical fast slow 9 words formula before. Freezing the space like a field actually broke his sword aura. Furthermore, this Chu Xiu was actually proficient in close combat with bare hands. Didn't he use a saber? Crossing his sword in front of him, Shen Bai's sword edge instantly produced a layer of dense icicle small swords. It was like a storm of hidden weapons blasting towards Chu Xiu. Over the years, Shen Bai had learned all of the Azure Water Sword Sex techniques and sword manuals. Apart from their Azure Water Sword Sex secret, Azure Water Sword Sutra, the ice-condensing sword technique he was currently using was the most proficient sword art. Fusing astral qi with sword qi, condensing the water vapor in the air into a sword. Although it was powerful and unpredictable, the requirements for the control of sword qi and astral qi were very harsh. In the entire Azure Water Sword sect, no one was willing to cultivate such a time-consuming and laborious technique that was extremely difficult to master. But Shen Bai was exceptionally gifted. In addition, he had been diligently cultivating for more than 10 years. His state of mind was already considered very calm, which was why he was able to meticulously control sword qi and astral qi and was able to easily master this technique. Every tiny icicle was a sword qi, but under Chu Xiu's great Vajra wheel seal, a glaring Buddha light burst forth. The might of the Vajra demon subduing Vajra was revealed, and those icicles melted one after another. The fist seal landed on Shen Bai's sword edge and immediately let out a loud clang. Shen Bai was pushed back a step. Chu Xiu's eyes narrowed. This Shen Bai was actually using a rank 6 artifact weapon. It seemed like Lu Gongyuan truly doted on this disciple of his. Sometimes, even a great expert at the unity of heaven and man realm wasn't qualified to use a rank 6 artifact weapon. At this moment, Chu Xiu's figure didn't have the slightest bit of pause. After the great Vajra wheel seal forced Shen Bai back, he consecutively used 3 more great Vajra wheel seals. Each time, he used his full strength. The 3 fist seals directly forced Shen Bai to take 3 steps back, and the crushing loss of self-control was undoubtedly revealed. The exchange between Chu Xiu and Shen Bai caused everyone present to exclaim in admiration. The strength of these 2 individuals was enough to show disdain for everyone. However, from the looks of it, Chu Xiu was still a notch stronger. That incomparably firm and ferocious fist seal. No one would feel good if they were to receive it head-on. Although Shen Bai was strong, he was currently being suppressed by Chu Xiu. But before everyone could finish exclaiming in admiration, the moment Shen Bai took a step back, a glaring divine radiance burst out from his sword. Shen Bai's entire body's astral qi gathered into this sword, but it didn't dissipate. In an instant, the sword qi soared into the sky. That sword seemed to be able to shatter mountains and break rivers. The sword intent was astonishing. Seeing this sword, Chang Tingfeng's expression suddenly changed. He whispered in horror, Lu Gongyuan actually taught his drowning river sword intent to Shen Bai. Is he crazy? Or does he really think that Shen Bai is his Azure Water Sword sect's only hope? Chang Tingfeng was very familiar with the sword that Shen Bai displayed. It was the drowning river sword that made Lu Gongyuan famous in the past. At that time, Chang Tingfeng hadn't reached the martial Dao master realm yet. In front of Lu Gongyuan, he was just a junior. That sword left a very deep impression on him. Most importantly, this sword wasn't a sword art at all. It was a type of sword intent. Lu Gongyuan had spent his entire life learning the sword, and he displayed the pinnacle sword after his comprehension of the sword Dao to the extreme. This wasn't something that could be passed down through words or explanations. It was very easy to learn this sword. As long as Lu Gongyuan demonstrated the charm of this sword on the spot, it would be fine. Only when the user personally imparted the charm would one be able to comprehend this type of sword intent. However, Lu Gongyuan hadn't made a move for more than 10 years. He was now old and his lifespan was coming to an end. This drowning river sword consumed a lot of energy when he was at his peak. Now that he was no longer at his peak, it was imaginable what kind of price Lu Gongyuan had to pay. It was basically his lifespan. At this moment in the battlefield, Shen Bai, who had used this sword, said coldly, "I miscalculated. I thought I had already overestimated you, but now it seems that I have still underestimated you. This sword was not originally prepared for you. It is your honor to be able to see it now." From the very beginning, Shen Bai said that Chu Xiu was just a stepping stone for him. His true target was the top 10 of the Longhu list. His trump card, Drowning River Sword, was also prepared for them. But when they actually fought, Shen Bai realized that Chu Xiu's strength was somewhat beyond his imagination. God knows how Chu Xiu cultivated to be able to accumulate such a deep foundation in just a few years. In any case, it couldn't be innate talent. If Chu Xiu was truly talented, then the Azure Water Sword sect wasn't an idiot. They wouldn't have ignored such a prodigy in the Wei County. By then, Lu Gongyuan wouldn't have accepted Shen Bai as his last disciple, but Chu Xiu. Therefore, after seeing Chu Xiu's strength foundation, Shen Bai made a decisive move and immediately used his Drowning River Sword to end this battle. "It wasn't prepared for me? You will know in a while. You should have prepared a trump card for me. This is Lu Gongyuan's sword intent, not yours. Lu Gongyuan was able to use this sword to drown the river in the past, but you can't." Chu Xiu welcomed the sword with astonishing might. With every step he took, the demonic aura around him surged. In the end, his entire body was completely enveloped by the boundless demonic aura of hatred. However, within the demonic aura, Chu Xiu's figure was like an evil god. Not only did he exude a demonic aura filled with hatred, but there was also a hint of divinity. Avicii Hell. Eternal Downfall. The Avicii Dao 3 Blades was originally the blade of hell with the Avicii Hell as its true intent. Anyone who committed the 5 sins would be thrown into the Avicii Hell, never to be reincarnated. The last blade of the Avicii Dao 3 Blades was the true intent of transforming into the god of hell, the blade of judgment for all sins in the world. Chapter 249. The Avicii 3 Blades was a cultivation method that harmed both others and oneself, and very few people had ever cultivated it to the extreme. However, Chu Xiu relied on the glazed golden threads gu, the Buddhist cultivation method that he cultivated, and his willpower to forcefully suppress it. Finally, he cultivated this cultivation method to the extreme and slashed out the last blade, which was also a blade that truly contained a trace of the martial path's true meaning. At the moment when Chu Xiu slashed out the last blade, he seemed to have really transformed into the god of the underworld, judging the sins of the world. Gods had no emotions, and were part of the operation of the rules of heaven and earth. Therefore, at the moment when Chu Xiu slashed out the last blade, his mind was actually impacted by this force to the point that there were no emotions. Only the demonic blade in his hand still slashed out with a powerful force. Fortunately, when Chu Xiu slashed out the blade, he used the internal lion seal to suppress himself, and the glazed golden threads gu also released a force in time to help Chu Xiu resist the backlash of this last blade. Otherwise, the impact of this last blade would have directly turned Chu Xiu into a madman. No wonder in the original plot, almost no one could cultivate the Avicii 3 Blades to the extreme. Even if they really succeeded, that person would become a madman who only knew how to kill. Under the impact of such a powerful demonic aura, it would be strange if one did not go crazy. The suicide blade technique lived up to its reputation. At this moment, when Chu Xiu's blade fell, the strange man shrouded in a black robe below the stage showed a strange look in his eyes. Since the decline of the demonic path, how long had it been since he had seen such a terrifying demonic blade? Tong Kai Tai and Xiahou Wujiang, who were sitting below, also had complicated expressions. Tong Kai Tai had always looked crazy before, but this time, his expression was solemn. Last time when he fought with Chu Xiu, he could feel that there was something in Chu Xiu's heart that was attracting him. Although he did not know what it was very tempting. Tong Kai Tai could guarantee that as long as he could swallow Chu Xiu's heart, his cultivation would definitely soar, and the benefits would be limitless. Now that he saw Chu Xiu slashing out with his saber, although he still had the thought of devouring Chu Xiu's heart, he completely gave up on the idea of doing so. Just based on this blade from Chu Xiu, he was afraid that he would lose his life before he could get Chu Xiu's heart. Xiahou Wujiang had the same feeling. Even though he was so far away, he could feel the terror of Chu Xiu's blade. Most importantly, he could feel that this blade could restrain the Xiahou clan. Xiahou's spirit control art affected the opponent's spirit and primordial spirit. Aside from the same primordial spirit secret art, the only things that could restrain this secret art were the extremely mighty Buddhist martial arts and Chu Xiu's extremely evil demonic martial arts. Xiahou Wujiang's left hand subconsciously played with a warm jade ring on his right hand. He did not care whether he could win first place in the God Weapon Conference or not, but this Chu Xiu was on the side of that trash, Mo Tianlin. He did not want to see Mo Tianlin's friend win first place. Xiahou Wujiang's left hand subconsciously played with a warm jade ring on his right hand. He did not care whether he could win first place in the God Weapon Conference or not, but just now, this Chu Xiu was on the side of that trash, Mo Tianlin. He did not want to see Mo Tianlin's friend win first place just like that. The people below the stage had their own thoughts, but in such a short moment, a violent impact broke out on the stage. The black blade seemed to have been slashed out from hell, and Xin Bai's sword was also shockingly powerful. When the two collided, there was a sudden burst of shocking waves. Even the arena began to tremble, and the light of the formation continued to shine as if it was going to crack at any moment. Seeing this scene, even Mo Yezi was a little worried that the arena would be directly destroyed by them. After all, when the Mirror Lake Villa built the arena, it was built according to the impact of the 3 Flower Realm warriors. Even after the construction was completed, the disciples of the Mirror Lake Villa were still thinking that their efforts this time would probably be in vain. 3 Flower Realm warriors on the Longhu list should not have come. In the end, not only did 4 3 Flower Realm warriors come, but they also directly exploded with combat power that far exceeded that of a 3 Flower Realm warrior. The arena was almost unable to withstand it. While Chu Xiu and Shen Bai were fiercely fighting, the formation on the arena had already been activated, continuously channeling the sharp qi of the two into the furnace. When the warriors fought before, the scale was too small, and their strength was also a little weak, so they basically did not provide much qi of sharpness. Now that Chu Xiu and Shen Bai were fighting so fiercely, it was already far more than the previous people. Everyone could clearly see that the flames in the furnace had completely turned silver, and the embryo that was previously just a liquid had now begun to change shape, becoming like a blade or a sword. Only then did everyone understand why only the winner of the God Armament Conference could be recognized by the God Armament. It was not that the God Armament had a shape as soon as it was born, but that only the strongest could give the God Armament a shape. The sharp qi of others was just nourishment. At this time, on the arena, the violent explosion of qi continued to be heard. Countless qi of sword was flying and shattering. Shen Bai's figure did not move, but Chu Xiu was surrounded by a monstrous devil qi, but his face was frighteningly pale. Forming a seal with one hand, a golden Buddha's light bloomed from Chu Xiu's body. The powerful power of the inner lion was constantly suppressing the devil qi in his body. Finally, the devil qi in his body was suppressed, but there was still blood flowing from the corner of Chu Xiu's mouth. This was not caused by the demonic aura's backlash, but the power of Shen Bai's river-sinking sword just now was too strong. After all, this was the powerful sword essence that Lu Gongyuan had used to become famous in Jianghu. Although it did not belong to Shen Bai, as long as Shen Bai could learn a layer of its charm, the power would be terrifying enough. The 3 blades of Avicii shattered the sword, but it wasn't able to shatter the sword will. It caused Chu Xiu's internal organs to be shaken, and he suffered some injuries. Seeing the scene of Chu Xiu vomiting blood, everyone was stunned. They looked at the unharmed Shen Bai and thought, did Chu Xiu lose this match? Even Mo Tianlin muttered, this Azure Water Sword Sect Shen Bai is actually so terrifying. Even Brother Chu was defeated by him? Mo Tianlin had seen Chu Xiu make a move several times. When was it not an earth-shattering suppression? Even Mo Tianlin admitted that not only was he not a match for Chu Xiu in the same rank, but even if his cultivation caught up to Chu Xiu in the future, he would still not be a match for Chu Xiu. In the end, Chu Xiu was injured in the battle with Shen Bai. Shen Bai's strength was a little too terrifying. At this moment, Luo Feiheng squinted his eyes and looked at the stage. The fight is not over yet, what's the hurry? Who told you that Chu Xiu will definitely lose? Just as Luo Feiheng finished speaking, Shen Bai gently lifted his sword. The sixth revolution artifact in his hand suddenly shattered on the stage. Shen Bai was stunned. He looked at his long sword with disbelief in his eyes. His falling rain sword was the sword that his master used when he was young. It was given to him by Lu Gongyuan when he was apprenticed to Lu Gongyuan. Shattered? With the Avicii devil chi entering his body, Chu Xiu's attack was not aimed at Shen Bai, but at the sword in his hand. The fallen rain sword was Lu Gongyuan's sword in the past. Although it was not a divine armament, he had nurtured a trace of his own aura on it. In fact, when Lu Gongyuan executed the sword sinking into the river at his peak, he had used the fallen rain sword. The reason why Shen Bai was able to successfully execute the drowning river sword was partly due to the falling rain sword. The power of the Avicii three blades erupted. Chu Xiu was confident that he could block the river sinking sword, but he was not confident that he could seriously injure Shen Bai. Therefore, the moment he attacked, Chu Xiu changed his target and poured all the Avicii devil chi into his opponent's falling rain sword. A sixth revolution artifact that had been passed down for hundreds of years finally shattered under Chu Xiu's blade. What else could a swordsman use if he lost his sword? Chu Xiu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and walked directly towards Shen Bai with his blade. Shen Bai, you are indeed very strong. Among the younger generation, you can be said to be the strongest person I have ever met. Chu Xiu's words made Tong Kai-tai and Xiahou Wujiang's faces darken. Did Chu Xiu mean that they were not as good as Shen Bai? Of course, they might be stronger than Shen Bai, but Chu Xiu had only fought with them to test their strength. Based on the strength they showed in the test, they were indeed not as strong as Shen Bai. Chu Xiu slashed out with the red sleeve blade in his hand. The blood-refined divine aura was dazzling, with a strong killing intent. Unfortunately, you have chosen the wrong opponent. You have been enduring for more than 10 years. Even when I appeared in Wei County last time, you did not make a move. Why don't you continue to endure? As his voice fell, the saber aura slashed out with a strong killing intent. This saber was a killer move, and Chu Xiu did not hold back at all. The hatred between him and Shen Bai could be considered as irreconcilable. Chu Xiu had no qualms about killing Shen Bai now. As for the Azure Water Sword sect, Chu Xiu did not put them in his eyes. Just a sect that was about to decline. Once Lu Gongyuan died, the Azure Water Sword sect would definitely be kicked out of the 7 sects and 8 factions. In Wei County, the Azure Water Sword sect might still have some strength, but in the pugilistic world, their influence was almost zero. With the strength of the Guanzhong torture room, they could completely disregard the Azure Water Sword sect. Just as Chu Xiu's saber aura fell, the conceit in Shen Bai's eyes was no longer there, but it was more of unwillingness. He was obviously talented, but he was trapped in the sect for more than 10 years before he was allowed to roam the pugilistic world. For the past 10 years, Shen Bai was able to endure everything he had to endure. It was to become famous in the pugilistic world and to carry forward the Azure Water Sword sect. In fact, in the beginning, everything went according to his plan. Among martial artists of the same rank, the Three Flower Realm was already rare. Bai Wuji, who was quite famous in the northern Yen, could not withstand a single blow from him. This time, it was time for him to become famous. But the only person Shen Bai miscalculated was Chu Xiu. A person that he originally used as a stepping stone had now become a tiger blocking his way. This was something that Lu Gongyuan did not expect back then. Chapter 250. An intense unwillingness filled Shen Bai's heart. Was his first step into the martial world going to end just like this? Shen Bai wasn't willing, his master wasn't willing, the entire Azure Water Sword sect wasn't willing. Shen Bai was shouldering too many things. He was shouldering the rise and fall of an entire sect. This might be a responsibility and motivation for Shen Bai, but it was also a pressure. Now that he was facing defeat, Shen Bai could choose to endure the humiliation and beg for Hidden Sword Villa's help and retreat unscathed. After all, Hidden Sword Villa didn't wish for a life and death battle on the stage from the start. But he, Shen Bai, was the first to propose a battle with Chu Xiu. If he were to go back on his words, where would his face be? This was something Shen Bai couldn't accept. Under this pressure, Shen Bai didn't retreat. His entire body's dipper chi gathered on his right arm. His left hand slashed across his right arm, and the sharp dipper chi actually forcefully cut open a huge wound on his right arm. Fresh blood gushed out, but it didn't scatter. Instead, under the control of the dipper chi, it transformed into a long sword that was completely forged with fresh blood. Using blood to form a sword. This move wasn't the Azure Billow Sword Sect's cultivation technique, but an evil attack that a senior of the Azure Billow Sword Sect found after killing a demon Dao martial artist. Using dipper chi to control and using one's own blood to form a sword, it could be said to be extremely evil. But the complete version of this technique should be used in conjunction with a martial art that could absorb the opponent's chi and blood. This way, after expending one's own blood to kill the opponent, one would be able to recover a little. But now that Shen Bai was using this move, he was completely risking his life. As a disciple of a major sect, it was necessary to learn one or two trump cards that could be used for desperate or escape. With Shen Bai's personality, he wouldn't run for his life. Hence, he chose to use this desperate blood to form a sword technique. Evil Dao techniques might be evil and had too many side effects, but there was no need to doubt its prowess. The dipper chi wrapped around the blood sword, and Shen Bai's entire right arm was completely dyed red with fresh blood. Contrasting with his pale complexion, it looked extremely evil. Chu Xiu's expression remained unchanged as he formed the great Vajra wheel seal with his hand. A dazzling golden light suddenly bloomed from Chu Xiu's hand, making Chu Xiu look like a Buddhist Vajra that could subdue demons. This scene made everyone slightly speechless. They hadn't forgotten Chu Xiu's demonic aura just now. If they hadn't known that Chu Xiu was from the Guanzhong torture room and was even an inspector of the Guanzhong torture room, someone might have tried to exterminate the demon. On the other hand, Shen Bai's sword chi had been rampaging. When he was fighting against Chu Xiu, it was like a young swordsman fighting against a demon. But now, the situation was reversed. Chu Xiu was using a righteous Buddhist technique, while Shen Bai was using an evil demonic technique. It was as if a Buddhist monk was subduing demons. The great Vajra wheel seal collided with Shen Bai's blood sword. Half of Shen Bai's rich chi and blood were instantly shattered by the great Vajra wheel seal. However, it strangely extracted a part of Shen Bai's blood extraction power to replenish it. It slashed straight at Chu Xiu as if it was unscathed. The sword of blood was Shen Bai's trump card. If it could be so easily restrained by Chu Xiu, then he might as well not cultivate it. However, after extracting a part of chi and blood, Shen Bai's face became even paler. With the loss of chi and blood, even if he won this round, his vitality would be greatly damaged. Of course, the most important thing was that Chu Xiu would not give Shen Bai a chance. The moment the blood sword was about to hit him, Chu Xiu formed the outer lion seal with his hand. As his fingers tapped on the seal, Buddhist chants exploded like thunder, causing the entire arena to tremble. Shen Bai's mind suddenly went blank when he was hit by the outer lion seal. All he could hear was the sound of Buddhist chants. This caused his body to involuntarily pause for a moment. When he regained his clarity of mind, he was met with Chu Xiu's eyes. His eyes were as deep as an abyss, constantly pulling Shen Bai's mental strength into them. Soul extinguishing and destroying technique. In the face of a warrior of the same level, the soul extinguishing and destroying technique was not as overbearing as the Xiahou clan's imperial spirit technique. However, Shen Bai's state of mind had suffered a heavy blow, and he was no longer as confident and tenacious as before. Most importantly, after Shen Bai used the blood sword technique, his vital energy had been severely depleted. Mental secret techniques would be discounted in the face of a warrior with a strong vital energy. Now that Shen Bai had depleted his vital energy, the power of the great technique of extinguishing sky and destroying earth extinguishing soul transfer was 30% stronger. In the blink of an eye, under the control of Chu Xiu's soul extinguishing and destroying technique, Shen Bai's mental strength seemed to have fallen into an abyss. He could no longer control his gang energy. The blood sword condensed from gang energy on his right arm dissipated with a loud bang, and fresh blood splattered all over the arena. His blood sword technique had been easily broken by Chu Xiu. The demonic technique of blood sword technique caused Shen Bai to awaken from the control of the soul extinguishing and destroying technique. However, at this moment, his face was extremely pale, and he could no longer condense a second blood sword. What welcomed him was the shockingly powerful great Vajra wheel seal from Chu Xiu. Shen Bai subconsciously waved his hand, wanting to burst out sword chi to defend himself. However, in the eyes of Chu Xiao, the sword qi was extremely fragile. It was directly blasted away by Chu Xiao's great Vajra wheel seal. Even Shen Bai's arms were directly smashed into pieces, twisting and breaking. Seeing this scene, the crowd shook their heads. The outcome had been decided. Shen Bai had lost. When Shen Bai had first appeared, he had been extremely domineering. As soon as he arrived, he had seriously injured Bai Wuji with a single move, displaying his terrifying cultivation. In fact, with just that sword alone, it was enough to make him famous in the God Weapon Conference. Furthermore, the strength that Shen Bai had displayed on the arena stage was extremely terrifying, especially that river-sinking sword. It was completely qualified for Shen Bai to be ranked within the top 10 of the Dragon and Tiger leaderboard. Unfortunately, Shen Bai had chosen the wrong opponent, causing his glory to last for less than 2 hours. Of course, after this God Weapon Conference, Shen Bai would also become famous in the God Weapon Conference. However, he would be regarded as one of the battle achievements of Chu Xiao. His reputation would be known throughout the God Weapon Conference, and he would appear as a loser. It was a pity that the Azure Billow Sword sect had painstakingly nurtured an elite that could be ranked in the forefront of the God Weapon Conference. In the end, he didn't even have the chance to shine for long before he was defeated. On the stage, after Chu Xiao's great Vajra wheel seal blasted Shen Bai away, his figure didn't stop. Instead, he chased after Shen Bai and landed a palm strike. He was actually still trying to kill Shen Bai. Chu Xiao's grudge with Shen Bai couldn't be resolved. Chu Xiao had killed Shen Bai's younger brother. Moreover, the Azure Billow Sword sect had also participated in the pursuit of Chu Xiao. Chu Xiao had no intention of reconciling with the Azure Billow Sword sect. Since that was the case, why didn't he go all out and kill Shen Bai right here and now? Everyone present had more or less understood Chu Xiao's style of doing things. When he made such a move, no one present was surprised. Most of the martial artists in the God Martial sect would abide by the rules of leaving a way out for others to meet in the future. But when did Chu Xiao follow the rules? He dared to kill the divine martial sect's Yan Huainan's most beloved daughter. He dared to cripple the elite disciple of the Sword King city's previous generation. What else wouldn't Chu Xiao do? Therefore, everyone was used to him wanting to cripple Shen Bai on the spot. On the contrary, if Chu Xiao showed mercy, then they would be surprised. When Cheng Tingfeng saw Chu Xiao's action, he couldn't help but frown. Shen Bai didn't have the slightest ability to resist, but Chu Xiao still wanted to be ruthless. Wasn't his murderous nature a little too much? Shen Bai might have mentioned to Chu Xiao earlier that life and death would be disregarded on the stage, but after seeing Shen Bai execute Lu Gongyuan's river-sinking sword, Cheng Tingfeng knew that Shen Bai was the future hope of the Azure Water Sword sect. If Shen Bai died here today, Lu Gongyuan might come looking for trouble with the Hidden Sword Villa. Lu Gongyuan's reputation in the pugilistic world was actually quite good, and he wasn't an unreasonable person. But the problem was that even the last hope of their sect's revival had been killed by someone else. Perhaps even the most reasonable person would become unreasonable. The Hidden Sword Villa wasn't afraid of the Azure Water Sword sect. Even without the Villa Lord, Cheng Tingfeng wasn't afraid of Lu Gongyuan. But Lu Gongyuan was already at the end of his lifespan. A barefooted person wasn't afraid of someone wearing shoes. If Lu Gongyuan really vented his anger on the Hidden Sword Villa because of this matter, it would be troublesome. Therefore, Cheng Tingfeng could only sigh and said, "Chu, where it is possible to forgive, one should forgive." Stop. Chu Xiao heard Cheng Tingfeng's words, but he didn't have the slightest intention to stop. Instead, he rushed towards Shen Bai at an even faster speed. Last time when he wanted to kill Yan Tingting, he was stopped by Xiao Baiyu. That was because Xiao Baiyu owed Yan Huainan a favor and had to protect Yan Tingting. Even if Cheng Tingfeng wanted to kill Yan Tingting, he couldn't. Hence, Cheng Tingfeng gave Xiao Baiyu face. But this time, it was on the stage. Previously, everyone agreed that life and death would be disregarded on the stage. Now that Shen Bai was defeated, Cheng Tingfeng wanted to go back on his words. Wasn't this favoring Shen Bai? Do you still want your dignity as a martial Dao Grand Master? Do you still want the Hidden Sword Villa's reputation? Moreover, he was here on behalf of the Guanzhong torture room. If Cheng Tingfeng was unfair, would Guan Siyu watch as her men were bullied outside? Your Hidden Sword Villa is afraid of Kanglin's sword sect coming to find trouble. But aren't you afraid of the Guanzhong torture room coming to find trouble with you? In terms of reason, Chu Xiu was truly fearless. In public, he was the one in the right in this matter. Hence, Chu Xiu didn't bother about Cheng Tingfeng's words and directly struck his palm at Shen Bai. This time he was going to completely end this karma. Seeing that Chu Xiu actually treated his words as air, Cheng Tingfeng couldn't help but snort coldly. A sword finger descended and directly streaked across the void. It arrived in front of Shen Bai even though it was launched later. It didn't attack Chu Xiu, but protected in front of Shen Bai. But at this moment, Chu Xiu's hand formed the wisdom fist seal. The force of circumference was useless against heaven and earth. Bursting out with all his strength, the aura chi pulled the sword chi. Although it only pulled the sword chi a little bit, it allowed Chu Xiu's great purple sun hand to accurately imprint on Shen Bai's dantian. Chapter 251. Needless to say, the power of a vicious martial technique like the sky-extinguishing earth-annihilating violet sun palm was needless to say. When Chu Xiu's palm landed on Shen Bai's dantian, he spat out a mouthful of purplish-black blood and was thrown out of the ring. He fainted. However, Chu Xiu did not follow up with another attack because Cheng Tingfeng had already appeared in front of Shen Bai and was looking at Chu Xiu with an unfriendly expression. Everyone present also looked at Chu Xiu with their mouths agape. To be honest, they had never seen such a bold person who actually dared to injure a martial arts master in front of him. Cheng Tingfeng pulled open Shen Bai's torn clothes. On Shen Bai's dantian, there was a purplish-black palm print. It seemed to be growing in his flesh. He could feel an extremely evil fire burning Shen Bai's meridians. Shen Bai's dantian was already crippled after being struck by such a palm. It was no different from being dead. In fact, with the arrogance and conceit that Shen Bai had displayed just now, Cheng Tingfeng was worried that Shen Bai would commit suicide after waking up because he couldn't bear such a thing. After injecting a stream of inner force into Shen Bai's body to stop the purple sun demonic flame in Shen Bai's body, Cheng Tingfeng looked at Chu Xiu and said coldly with an unfriendly expression, "Didn't you hear me asking you to stop just now? Chu Xiu, how dare you? Do you really think that just because you have the Guanzhong torture room behind you, you can look down on the hidden sword villa?" Chu Xiu calmly cupped his hands and said, "Senior Cheng, I did not mean that. However, swords have no eyes, and fists and feet have no heart. Before we started fighting, it was Shen Bai who first proposed a life-and-death battle. Of course, I would not refuse. Moreover, Senior Cheng, as you can see, I cultivate a part of the demonic arts. So once I unleash my true power, I can't control myself. Just now, I really wanted to stop, but that palm still fell involuntarily. This is something that all the martial artists present can attest to. Just like the battle in front of Water Cloud Temple. I just wanted to hold back, but I couldn't control myself. If I've offended you, please forgive me, Senior Cheng." Hearing Chu Xiu's sophistry, everyone present was speechless. Quite a few of them had seen the battle in front of the Water Cloud Monastery. During that battle, Chu Xiu might have really gone crazy. When he started killing, he didn't care about anything else. He didn't even care about his own safety. Instead, he killed so many of his enemies that they were terrified. But when Chu Xiu attacked just now, even an idiot could see that Chu Xiu was absolutely sober. If you can't hold back, can you still use the Wisdom Fist seal to deflect Cheng Tingfeng's sword chi before attacking him? This was clearly intentional. However, although Chu Xiu's argument was sophistry, it was reasonable, and he had lowered himself sufficiently. Although Cheng Tingfeng was angry that Chu Xiu had ignored his words, what else could he say? He didn't want Chu Xiu to kill Shen Bai, because he didn't want to invite trouble. As a result, Shen Bai was already crippled and living a life worse than death. If Cheng Tingfeng insisted on punishing Chu Xiu with sufficient reason, he could. A martial Dao master didn't need any reason to teach a junior martial artist a lesson. But the problem was that if he did so, it would be equivalent to offending the Guanzhong torture room. Moreover, the Azure Water Sword sect wouldn't remember his favor. So what benefits would he get by doing so? If he knew this was the case, he might as well not say anything and let Chu Xiu and Shen Bai kill each other. It would save him the trouble of taking off his pants and farting. It would be an unnecessary move that wouldn't be pleasing to both sides. Therefore, Cheng Tingfeng could only let out a cold snort and said, "I will personally be the referee for the next matches. No one should think about going overboard. If you go crazy again, Think about the consequences yourself. Chu Xiu smiled and cupped his hands. Senior Cheng, don't worry. I will control myself. After finishing his statement, Chu Xiu leisurely walked down the stage and threw a few recuperation pills into his mouth, as if he was chewing on jelly beans. He might have crippled Xin Bai, but he also expended a lot of energy. Especially when he used the Wisdom Fist Seal to deflect Chang Tingfeng's sword qi, it almost consumed all his internal force. A martial Dao master's attack wasn't something that the current Chu Xiu could withstand, even if it was a small sword qi. With Chu Xiu's strength, he would not be able to block even a casual sword qi from Chang Tingfeng. Therefore, the only thing he could do was to use the power of the Wisdom Fist Seal's condensed aura domain to teleport him away. When Chu Xiu returned to Emo Tianlin's side, Emo Tianlin looked at Chu Xiu and praised, "You've been in the limelight quite a bit today. To be honest, you're quite courageous to actually dare to challenge a martial Dao master." Luo Feiheng also looked at Chu Xiu with a strange gaze and said, "In the past, my dad always said that I was a deviant or something, but he never really punished me. But if I do something like you, I can guarantee that my dad will beat me to death." Although Xie Xiao Lu didn't say anything, he also looked at Chu Xiu with the same gaze. Indeed, in the eyes of most martial artists, the dignity of a martial Dao master couldn't be challenged, but in the end, Chu Xiu dared to cripple Xin Bai in front of Chang Tingfeng after he called for him to stop. This was no longer something that could be described as courting death. In the eyes of most people, Chu Xiu's behavior was equivalent to courting death. Chu Xiu casually waved his hand and said, "I'm not an idiot. I wouldn't do this if it was under other circumstances. This God Weapon Conference is organized by the Hidden Sword Villa. If the Hidden Sword Villa takes the lead and doesn't follow the rules, then what's the point of this God Weapon Conference? Moreover, I'm in the right in this matter. If the Hidden Sword Villa dares to touch me, they'll be the ones losing face." Emo Tianlin and the others all shook their heads. Although that was what they said, there weren't many people who would actually dare to do such a thing. The battle between Chu Xiu and Shan Bai was extremely intense, and the sharp aura produced when the two of them fought was directly poured into the formation, even causing the embryo in the furnace to faintly condense into the shape of a knife. The shape was ferocious and sharp, and at a glance, it was obvious that it was not a good method. It was obvious that Chu Xiu was the most outstanding one in this God Weapon Conference. If Chu Xiu could maintain this state in the next battle, then he would definitely be the winner of this God Weapon Conference. At this time, everyone subconsciously looked at Xiahou Wujiang. Among these people, the only one who could compete with Chu Xiu was Xiahou Wujiang. Although Tong Kai Tai was also in the Three-Flower Realm, no one was familiar with him. Moreover, Tong Kai Tai had previously retreated from the hands of Chu Xiu, so everyone subconsciously thought that Tong Kai Tai's strength was not as good as Chu Xiu's. At this time, Xiahou Wujiang also frowned. To be honest, after seeing Chu Xiu's attack, he was also a little uncertain. The Xiahou clan's imperial spirit technique followed a completely different path from normal martial arts. Without a real fight, he couldn't be sure if he could defeat Chu Xiu. Even if he took out all his trump cards, his chances of winning were no more than 50%. Of course, he could also choose not to fight. Although he couldn't win, at least he wouldn't lose, and he wouldn't lose face. Moreover, the people of the Xiahou clan almost never used weapons, so having a god weapon in hand didn't mean much. But the problem was that under such circumstances, even if he didn't fight, he would be ridiculed by some people for being afraid of Chu Xiu. Moreover, this Chu Xiu was actually on good terms with Emo Tianlin and dared to ruin his plans just now. If he didn't teach him a lesson, Xiahou Wujiang wouldn't be satisfied. At this time, the next group of people had already entered the arena. One of them was the black-robed man that Chu Xiu had been paying attention to before. His opponent was a martial artist at the peak of the physical invulnerability realm. The black-robed man was unknown, so his opponent certainly wouldn't give up just like that. The physical invulnerability realm martial artist glanced at the black-robed man and didn't recognize him. He was definitely a nobody, but he didn't care. He just waved the sword in his hand and said indifferently, "If you know what's good for you, take the initiative to admit defeat. You can save some energy." But the black-robed man suddenly laughed. His voice was full of disdain, which made the physical invulnerability realm martial artist angry. He snorted coldly and rushed forward with his sword. But at this time, the black-robed man suddenly opened his mouth and laughed strangely. "Don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, Blame your own bad luck. As soon as he finished speaking, the black-robed man stretched out a hand. In an instant, endless demonic aura enveloped the physical invulnerability realm martial artist. Only a wail could be heard. The demonic aura seemed to penetrate through every pore, directly seeping into the martial artist's body and forcefully sucking away his vitality. Almost in an instant, the physical invulnerability realm martial artist turned into a dried corpse. At this moment, everyone was stunned, including the people from the Hidden Sword Villa. Because this batch of martial artists on the arena didn't have any fame, the crowd didn't even pay attention to them. Even the referee felt a little careless. In the end, before they could react, a scream came from the other side. One person had died. Wasn't this a little too fast? At this time, the faces of the people from the Hidden Sword Villa, especially Chung Tingfeng, darkened. Just now, he was the one who said that the others shouldn't go too far. In the end, as soon as he said that, someone killed someone in front of him. This was simply a slap to his face. Chung Tingfeng looked at the black-robed man and shouted, "Which sect are you from? Didn't you hear what I said just now? The God Weapon Conference is not a place for you to come and kill people. Do you really think that the Hidden Sword Villa is easy to talk to? Which sect are you from? Cheng Tingfeng, don't you recognize me?" Chung Tingfeng frowned. He suddenly felt that something was wrong. But at this time, the aura of the black-robed man had begun to rise continuously. From the physical invulnerability realm to the three flowers above one's prominence, then to the five Qis unification, and finally to the martial arts master realm. A powerful demonic aura shot up into the sky. The black-robed man took off his hat, revealing an extremely ordinary face. However, that face seemed to be magic, quickly changing, and finally became the face of a cold middle-aged man. Under the holy sect, Shadow Demon Envoy, Situ Li of the Phaseless Demon Sect. Chung Tingfeng, I've always remembered that sword of yours in the past. Situ Li smiled coldly at Chung Tingfeng, his eyes filled with intense killing intent. Chapter 252. Hearing the names of the Holy Sect and the Phaseless Demon Sect, everyone's expressions suddenly changed. Even the people from the Hidden Sword Villa and the Mo family of the Mirror Lake Villa reacted the same way. The Holy Sect referred to the Kunlun Devil Cult, but it was just the name that the Kunlun Devil Cult called themselves. To the Kunlun Devil Cult, they did not think of themselves as demons. During the era when Dugu Weiwei dominated the pugilistic world, he once told the people of the Kunlun Devil Cult what was righteous and what was demonic. Why should the righteous path be higher than the demonic path? The so-called demonic path was just a name. As long as the Kunlun Devil Cult could suppress the world, then even if they were the demonic path, they could still become the supreme holiness and be worshipped by everyone in the world. Therefore, from then on, the Kunlun Devil Cult called themselves the Holy Sect. That was also the time when the Kunlun Devil Cult was at its peak. As for the Phaseless Demon Sect, it was also very famous. It was one of the 7 sects and 8 schools, but it was the best hidden one. Even now, no one in the pugilistic world knew where the Phaseless Demon Sect was. Furthermore, what made Phaseless Demon Sect famous in the pugilistic world was not their strength, but their loyalty to Kunlun Demon Sect. In the past, when Dugu Weiwei disappeared after the battle with Ning Xuanji, the entire Kunlun Devil Cult could be said to have fallen apart and was completely annihilated by the righteous path. However, back then, there were not many people in the Kunlun Devil Cult. Those who could officially become the disciples of the Kunlun Devil Cult were the elites of the elites. In the past, the Kunlun Devil Cult was able to conquer the world by relying on countless vassals of the demonic path. For example, the North Plains Evil Pole Sect, the Southern Borders Moon Worshipping Cult, and the Phaseless Demon Sect. They were all vassal sects under the Kunlun Devil Cult and were under the command of the Kunlun Devil Cult. However, after the Kunlun Devil Cult was annihilated, these vassal sects fled in all directions. Some even chose to kick them when they were down. The Phaseless Demon Sect was the most loyal. After hundreds of years, they were still loyal to the Kunlun Devil Cult. Their attitude had never changed. All these years, the Phaseless Demon Sect had been hiding underground because they had a secret technique that could perfectly conceal their aura. Furthermore, they could change their appearance and figure at will. Therefore, even if the righteous sects wanted to exterminate the Phaseless Demon Sect, they had never succeeded. At most, they had killed a few people, but it was not enough to greatly damage the strength of the Phaseless Demon Sect. In the past, when the Kunlun Demon Sect was at its peak, the Phaseless Demon Sect was in charge of gathering information. When the Kunlun Devil cult was at its peak, the Phaseless Demon Sect was in charge of gathering information for the Kunlun Devil cult. Take this Situ Li for example. Given his strength, he could easily become an elder or even the sect head of the Phaseless Demon Sect. However, he still addressed himself as the Shade Devil Envoy. This was enough to show his loyalty to the Kunlun Demon Sect. Chung Tingfeng narrowed his eyes as he looked at Situ Li. He remembered this face. All these years, the Phaseless Demon Sect had been causing trouble in the dark. They took revenge on the righteous sects that attacked the Kunlun Devil cult. They even took revenge on the vassal sects that hit the Kunlun Devil cult when they were down. They were the traitors that they called traitors. Therefore, the Phaseless Demon Sect was not loved by anyone. As long as they showed their face, they would be hunted down. In the past, Chung Tingfeng had also participated in the hunt for the people from the Phaseless Demon Sect. At that time, he had severely injured Situ Li. However, it was a pity that Situ Li had escaped. Chung Tingfeng said coldly, "You bunch of rats from the Phaseless Demon Sect actually dare to appear again. Moreover, you even appeared in a place like the Divine Weapon Conference. You really don't know what's good for you. I let you escape in the past, but this time, do you think you can escape? I didn't go to kill you, but you took the initiative to jump out and cause trouble. You really don't know what's good for you." Situ Li laughed and said in a sinister voice, "Chung Tingfeng, I said it before. I will return that sword attack of yours sooner or later. Moreover, if I wasn't fully prepared, do you think I would appear here?" As soon as he finished speaking, a strong demonic aura suddenly erupted from the bodies of some of the martial artists who looked low-key and ordinary. The appearance of these martial artists changed, and they all looked the same. It looked very strange. Most importantly, these people were extremely strong. Even the weakest among them had the strength of a physical invulnerability expert. A total of dozens of martial artists from the Phaseless Demon Sect jumped onto the stage and burst out their demonic chi without any scruples. This caused Chung Tingfeng's face to change slightly. These fellows from the Phaseless Demon Sect were really hard to deal with. After such a long time, he actually didn't notice anything wrong. He actually let so many disciples from the Phaseless Demon Sect sneak in. If it was in the Hidden Sword Villa, he wouldn't be afraid of these disciples from the Phaseless Demon Sect. However, the problem was that this was the Mirror Lake Villa. This time, the Hidden Sword Villa was only here to host the Divine Weapon Conference. Therefore, they didn't bring too many disciples. Although they brought elites, there were only a dozen of them. As for the Mirror Lake Villa, these people were all descendants of Mo Yezi. Almost all of them were blacksmiths. They were in the same realm, but unfortunately, none of them could fight. It was useless to count on them. Chung Tingfeng's face darkened, and he said coldly, "You want to kill me with just these few people? Wishful thinking. I think your Phaseless Demon Sect has been living too comfortably recently. When I return to the Hidden Sword Villa, I will definitely mobilize the power of the Hidden Sword Villa to kill your Phaseless Demon Sect." Situ Li said indifferently, "Don't flatter yourself too much. This time, the Phaseless Demon Sect spent so much effort not to kill you." Chung Tingfeng's face changed slightly. "Then what are you trying to do?" Situ Li didn't directly answer Chung Tingfeng's question. Instead, he sneered at the nervous young martial artists below the stage. "Do you think that the Hidden Sword Villa put in so much effort to host this Divine Weapon Conference to give you divine weapons for free? They actually want to use you to refine weapons." Everyone froze. Grandmaster Mo Yezi had already explained this to them earlier. He said that Grandmaster Mo Yezi had invented a new method of weaponsmithing that required the sharpness of their attacks to be used to forge the divine weapons. Although they had to act personally, in the end, the divine weapons would still belong to them. In that case, they wouldn't be at a disadvantage. Situ Li sneered, "Do you really think the Hidden Sword Villa will be so kind? Do you know what material is used to refine the divine weapon in the furnace? It's the token of our holy church, the demonic order. You keep saying how good our holy church is, acting as if it's a taboo, but in the end, you're using our holy church's things to refine divine weapons. How hypocritical is that?" Everyone present had different expressions. To be honest, most of them didn't know what the demonic order was. However, in the past, the Kunlun Devil cult dominated the world. To be able to be related to the Kunlun devil cult, it must be a treasure. Using it to refine divine weapons was normal. Of course, this kind of thing didn't sound good. Just like what Situli said, it was a bit hypocritical. However, there were quite a number of disciples from the major sects present. If they were in Qin Wentian's shoes, they would do the same thing as well. It was just that they couldn't let others know about it. Wasting was not a good habit. Chu Xiu knew some of the truth because he also had that token. It should be a fragment of the demonic order. This thing really was related to the Kunlun devil cult. Looking at everyone's expression, Situli sneered. As expected, the so-called people from the large sects are all the same. However, what if I say that Mo Yezi and the people from the Hidden Sword Villa joined hands to restore the demon sword, longing yearning, of our holy church's 3 great demon weapons? Hearing this, everyone's expression changed abruptly. In the past, when the Kunlun devil cult dominated the world, there were 3 divine weapons that were the most famous. They were the demon blade, the demon sword, and the demon spear. Among them, the demon blade was the weapon of the cult's leader, Dugu Weiwei. It had long been lost without a trace. As for the remaining 2 demon weapons, they were in the hands of 2 of the 4 great demon sovereigns of the Kunlun devil cult. Among them, the demon sword, longing yearning, was also very famous in Jianghu. Although its name was very poetic and even gentle, it had harvested countless lives. It caused countless martial artists to lose their loved ones and teachers, and could only yearn alone. However, following the annihilation of the Kunlun devil cult, it was said that the demon sword, longing yearning, was also destroyed by the righteous experts. Why would Situli say that this thing was in the hands of the Hidden Sword Villa, and that the Hidden Sword Villa wanted to restore it? Nonsense! Cheng Tingfeng shouted angrily. In his hand, a long sword that was blooming with a soaring sword light was already unsheathed. Then, with a wave of his hand, the other martial artists of the Hidden Sword Villa immediately took action, not allowing Situli to speak nonsense. However, Situli sneered and said, "Don't be anxious. Later, even if you don't take action, I will. However, today, I want to let the entire Jianghu see how hypocritical your Hidden Sword Villa is, and how greedy you are. Mo Guangyuan, take action. What are you waiting for?" As Situli's voice fell, a person from the Mirror Lake Villa quickly walked out. He drew on the formation, then immediately jumped to the side of the people from the Phaseless Demon sect. The formation was activated again, and the mechanism on the ground turned, and another empty furnace appeared. However, what existed in this furnace was not an embryo, but a pitch-black slender sword. It was abnormally beautiful, and there were fine patterns on it, emitting a shocking demonic aura. However, at this time, the slender sword was covered in cracks, as if it would shatter with a light touch. Situli sneered and said, "You all saw it. This so-called using the formation to forge a weapon is just a pretense. Although in the end, by borrowing your sharpness, they will indeed forge a divine weapon, but in reality, what they really want to restore is the demon sword longing yearning that belongs to my holy sect." You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.